Chapter 779. To be honest, Chu Xiu did not intend to fall out with Xianglong so soon. He had a good life in the northern Yan. As for the imperial court, he only needed to complete the task given by Xianglong. On the Jianghu side, except for the big sects like the Great Guangming Temple, the other forces in the northern Yan Wulin were not as strong as the eastern Qi Wulin, so Chu Xiu could deal with them easily. Therefore, if there were no accidents, Chu Xiu really wanted to manage the name of the Zhenwu Hall well and develop its strength quietly. Even Chu Xiu let the people in the Zhenwu Hall perform their own duties and develop various departments. Although it was still a little immature, it was complete. Some specialized in intelligence, although the source and speed of information were not as fast as the wind media of the wind-sweeping building. There were also those who forged weapons, though it took a lot of effort to forge even a single precious weapon. Some refined elixirs, although they could only refine the blood recovery elixir. Although the effect was not satisfactory, at least it was very comprehensive. Under Chu Xiu's command, there was already a complete embryonic force, not only with force. As a result, who would have thought that Xianglong would play such a trick on him? The rabbit was not dead yet, but he began to plot. This time, because Chu Xiu originally wanted to go to the extreme north to dig the treasure left by Lu Jianghe, he had to agree. But next time, maybe Xianglong would do something, so Chu Xiu had to prepare early. Because Chu Xiu could not leave the northern Yan for the time being. After Mei Qinglian informed Wei Shuya came in person. In the secret room of the Zhenwu Hall, Chu Xiu bowed to Wei Shuya and said, "Elder Wei, I'm really sorry to trouble you to come here at this time." After the war between the righteous and the devil, Wei Shuya, a true fire expert in the spiritual refinement realm who participated in the war, was almost always in seclusion. It could be considered as recuperating and digesting the gains of the war. This time, when Chu Xiu asked for it, Wei Shuya came in person. It could be said that he had given Chu Xiu enough face. Wei Shuya hammered his thigh and said, "It's fine. I was born to be a laborer. I should move while I can. Otherwise, after a few years, I won't be able to move even if I want to. I heard from Mei last that you were tricked by that brat Xianglong, and now you want to scheme against the northern Yan?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's not about the northern Yan. It's just that Xianglong is too cold-blooded. He wants to burn the bridge before crossing it. Since he's heartless, I naturally don't need to talk about morality. Northern Yan's Xianglong was indeed worthy of his title as a hero. With him around, even if I wanted to cause trouble in northern Yan, I wouldn't have the ability to do so. But now, as far as I know, Xianglong doesn't have much time left. My lurking devil clan might have a chance to take over northern Yan." Wei Shuya frowned and thought for a moment. If Xianglong dies, the northern Yan will fall into chaos for a while. But the northern Yan's royal family isn't weak either. Moreover, although the princes of the northern Yan aren't as strong as Xianglong, they aren't too weak either. The chaos will only last for a while. Eventually, peace will return. So, there aren't many opportunities for us to intervene. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Under normal circumstances that would be the case. But if we intervene, the northern Yan won't just be in chaos for a while." Wei Shuya was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "I almost forgot. You're still the one who's cunning. You should be the best at this kind of thing." Wei Shuya's comment on Chu Xiu's cunning wasn't meant to scold him. In the demonic path, it was a compliment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have praised Chu Xiu for being cunning, but for being kind. Wei Shuya waved his hand. "I'll leave the thinking to you youngsters. This old man is old, and my brain can't keep up. I won't meddle in this. As long as you're confident, it's fine. Whatever you want to do, just tell me." Chu Xiu said, "Xianglong isn't dead yet, but we need to make preparations on our side. I only have one request for you to come here, and that is for you to use your connections to secretly gather the people on your side or those who are on good terms with you to the Northern Yan Kingdom. Let me think of a way to secretly insert them into the Northern Yan Kingdom's imperial court. These people don't need to do anything for the time being. They just need to lay low and wait for my news to spread. Then they can move at the same time." Mei Qinglian, who was at the side, felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know what Chu Xiu's plan was, but it was obvious that Chu Xiu didn't have good intentions by inserting so many people into the Northern Yan court. Once it was launched, the power would be beyond imagination. Moreover, this was a decision that Wei Shuya had to ponder over. Chu Xiu was playing such a big game. The Northern Yan royal family and the Northern Yan court weren't weak either. If something went wrong, it would be a serious blow to the Yinma clan. To be more precise, it would be a blow to Wei Shuya's people. In fact, for so many years, Wei Shuya didn't establish his own sect or accept many disciples like the other Yinma clan leaders. However, he had a lot of people under his command. These people weren't Wei Shuya's subordinates, nor were they his disciples. But they all treated him with great respect. Some of them admired Wei Shuya. After all, he was one of the 5 great sky demons of the 9th Sky Mountain. He was the last backbone of the Yinma clan. Wei Shuya's identity alone was worthy of their respect. There were also warriors of the Hidden Devil clan like Chu Wuji, who had received favors from Wei Shuya. They were also willing to follow Wei Shuya and be at his beck and call. As long as Wei Shuya asked, these people wouldn't refuse. However, it was precisely because of this that Wei Shuya had to be extremely cautious when it came to such a big matter. Otherwise, he would lose the lives of so many warriors of his lineage. Especially since these people trusted him so much, Wei Shuya would feel a heartache. After a while, Wei Shuya asked in a low voice, "How confident are you?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "I can't say for sure. No one can say for sure that they will succeed. 30% depends on oneself and 70% depends on the heavens. I can only do my best and leave the rest to the heavens. But once it's done, the Yinma clan will have a firm foothold in the Northern Yan and become our foundation." Wei Shuya let out a long sigh and said, "Okay, no problem. I'll go back and arrange it. But Chu Xiu, you have to be very careful about this. They trusted I, and now I trust you too. I hope you won't let me down." Chu Xiu bowed slightly and said, "Don't worry, Elder Wei. When have I ever done anything unprepared?" With that, Wei Shuya turned around and left, leaving only Mei Qinglian and Chu Xiu in the secret room. Looking at Chu Xiu, Mei Qinglian had a strange look on her face. She said, "Are you really going to do something big this time?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's not that I'm prepared. It's just that the arrow on the bow has to be released. If I wasn't prepared, I would have been tricked to death by that old fart, Xiang Long, without even knowing how I died." Mei Qinglian waved her hand and said, "Forget it. I won't say much. It's good that you're prepared. Just like what Old Wei said, you're the best at scheming." Chu Xiu said with a serious expression, "I'm actually good at persuading people with reason, but there are a lot of people who are unreasonable now, so I can only take out my knife and explain things to them." "Then why didn't you take out your knife when you were facing Xiang Long?" Mei Qinglian's expression was as if she'd believe him. "If I dare to draw my knife against Xiang Long now, I probably won't even be able to walk out of the palace alive. It's precisely because it's useless to just pull out a knife when facing some people, so it's reasonable to use some small tricks at this time." Mei Qinglian snorted and said, "I can't be bothered to listen to your nonsense. Old Wei has already arranged people. How are you going to stuff people into the Northern Yan court?" Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "I don't have the slightest foundation in the Northern Yan court. Other than stuffing people into the Zhenwu Hall, I can't do anything else. So I need someone else to handle this matter." "Who? Xiang Wu and a prince?" Chu Xiu didn't even think before he spoke. It was obvious that he had already come up with a countermeasure. Mei Qinglian frowned and said, "Xiang Wu? The guy who likes to eat bananas? I remember he's also from the Northern Yan royal family. Is he reliable? And which prince are you talking about? How can you be so sure that those princes will listen to you?" Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "If Xiang Wu isn't reliable, he wouldn't be able to become the great general of the West Hill Army. As for which prince it is, I still need to test them one by one. But I believe that almost all the princes want to sit on the dragon throne. And among these princes, there are many who have resentment towards Xiang Long. Anyway, I'll test them one by one and find a suitable candidate." After explaining to Mei Qinglian, Chu Xiu prepared to go to Xiang Wu first. Xiang Wu and Chu Xiu had a deep cooperation. In the beginning, Xiang Wu helped Chu Xiu to stop the Huangfu old ancestor. After that, Chu Xiu also cooperated with Xiang Wu. He helped Xiang Wu obtain the trade route of the giant spirit gang and helped him support the soldiers under him. Most people would feel that Xiang Wu wasn't very reliable after seeing him, just like Mei Qinglian. But in fact, Xiang Wu was a person who could see things more clearly than anyone else. He was also very steady in doing things. An unreliable general without the slightest ambition would not always think about fighting for the interests of his soldiers. When Chu Xiu went to see Xiang Wu, he specially bought a basket of bananas as a gift. He knew that Xiang Wu liked bananas, but it was quite difficult to buy in northern Yan. Chu Xiu had people search half of Yanjing before finding it. When he arrived at Xiang Wu's mansion, Chu Xiu found nothing. The servant said that Xiang Wu was in the barracks outside the city. When Chu Xiu turned around and came to the barracks, Xiang Wu seemed to have already heard the news. He was waiting at the gate in advance. When he saw Chu Xiu coming over with bananas, he directly took it and scolded, "Why did you bring anything? Official Chu, you are really treating me like an outsider." Chapter 780. General Xiang welcomed Chu Xiu into the barracks. With an arrogant expression, he pointed at the soldiers who were training in the barracks and said, "Lord Chu, my West Hill army has the shortest history among the 5 armies of the Northern Yan Kingdom. It has developed to this state in just a dozen years. What do you think? Strong troops and strong horses." Chu Xiu only said these 4 words, but Xiang Wu was already overjoyed. To him, these 4 words were the best compliment he could receive. Moreover, Chu Xiu was not praising Xiang Wu ideologically, but the West Hill army under Xiang Wu was really not weak. Although the people of Jianghu and the warriors of the military both practiced martial arts, their paths were completely different, especially in the early stage. Most of the martial arts practiced by the people of Jianghu in the early stage were used for one-on-one combat, so their development was more comprehensive. They did not need to be proficient in close combat, weapons and concealed weapons, as well as speed, but at least they needed to know a little. But the warriors of the military were different. The military did not have the time to wait for martial artists to fully develop, so the martial artists who came from the military only cultivated 2 things. One was to train their muscles and bones, temper their bodies, and the other was to cultivate those single but extremely powerful killing skills. There were tens of thousands of people fighting on the battlefield, so it was useless to learn those messy martial arts skills. As long as they had a killing skill, it was enough. At the moment, the warriors of the West Hill army under Xiang Long were gathered together. Their qi and blood were surging, and their killing intent was soaring. It could be said that they were all elites. After bringing Chu Xiu into the tent, there was also a fair-faced middle-aged warrior who looked like a Confucian scholar. Chu Xiu said softly, "I have something secret to discuss with you, Marquis." Xiang Wu waved his hand and said, "Official Chu, just say it. This is Yin Luohua, my trusted subordinate. No matter how big the secret is, there is no need to hide it from him. Come to think of it, Old Yin and Official Chu know each other. When Official Chu first made a name for yourself in East Yen, Old Yin was stationed there as a general." Yin Luohua smilingly cupped his hands towards Chu Xiu and said, "I've known Official Chu for a long time. Back then, I already felt that Official Chu was extraordinary. Now, it seems that I really have a good eye for people. Lord Yin is too polite." Chu Xiu gently raised his eyebrows and cupped his hands towards Yin Luohua. What he wanted to say was too sensitive, and he didn't want others to hear it. However, since Xiang Wu has made Yin Luohua stay here, I, Chu Xiu, cannot drive her away. Therefore Chu Xiu directly said to Xiang Wu, "Marquis, what I want to tell you today is somewhat treasonous. Once the 2 of you hear it, you will not be able to speak of it. Of course, even if the 2 of you leak the news, I will not admit it." Hearing Chu Xiu say it so formally and seriously, Xiang Wu and Yin Luohua's expressions changed slightly. Treasonous? What was Chu Xiu trying to do? Looking at the 2 of them, Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Not long ago, His Majesty forced the subduing Marshal Hall to be the vanguard to station troops in the extreme north. You should know the consequences of such an action. This is basically a provocation to the Great Light Temple." Xiang Wu and Yin Luohua looked at each other. They were not idiots and naturally could hear that something was wrong. Xiang Wu rubbed his chin and said, "Official Chu, have you offended His Majesty? Don't worry, when there's a chance, I will help you plead for leniency for His Majesty." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Of course not. Marquis, have you not seen His Majesty for a long time?" Xiang Wu frowned and said, "Yes, it's been a few months. What's wrong? Did something happen to His Majesty?" In fact, in terms of status, Xiang Wu should be the most trustworthy person for Xiang Long. After all, he was born into the Northern Yan royal family. Of course, this was the reality. Xianglong loved to order Xiangwu to do things big and small. But in fact, Xiangwu also knew that this trust came with a price. That price was that his connections in the Northern Yan court were not very high. In the eyes of the other Northern Yan military experts, they were the same kind of people. And Xiangwu, who was born into the Northern Yan royal family, was another kind of person. He definitely represented the interests of the Northern Yan royal family. But in fact, only Xiangwu himself knew that he was actually being ostracized by the Northern Yan royal family. Although he was considered a member of the Northern Yan royal family, he was born into a collateral branch. His bloodline with the Northern Yan royal family had thinned to a certain extent, and the two sides actually had no feelings for each other. That was why Xianglong had summoned him back and entrusted him with a heavy responsibility. What he valued was only his public identity and ability. To put it bluntly, Xianglong wanted to use Xiangwu to divide the power of the Northern Yan military. He did not want them to be as united as a piece of iron. His purpose was the same as Taoist Wuyang and Chu Xiu. Xiangwu was considered by the military to be a member of the Northern Yan royal family. But at the same time, the Northern Yan royal family did not see him as one of their own. Therefore, Xiangwu could only rely on Xianglong. Although Xiangwu was unreliable most of the time, he was very clear about these things. If it were anyone else, they might have tried to curry favor with Xianglong to solidify their position. But with Xiangwu's personality, he was not one for flattery. Xiangwu knew his position. As long as his strength remained at its peak, then Xianglong would always put him in an important position, even more so than others. On the other hand, if he did not have the strength, then no matter how hard he tried to curry favor with Xianglong, it would be useless. All in all, his relationship with Xianglong could be considered a deal. Since it was a deal, then it should be more straightforward. There was no need for all those messy things, and he naturally would not stay by Xianglong's side. I'm afraid His Majesty will not last much longer this time. The last time I saw His Majesty, he was already surrounded by a deathly aura. That is why His Majesty is in such a hurry to have me deal with the great Guangming Temple. I think he is preparing to deal with any uncertain factors within the Northern Yan first, so that the next generation can have a stable Northern Yan. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Xiangwu felt somewhat conflicted. Since Xianglong was already showing signs of his lifespan reaching its end, he only needed to make a trip to the palace to immediately find out the truth. Therefore, he did not suspect that Chu Xiu would lie to him. He did not have any feelings for Xianglong. The two of them were just a deal. However, it would not be so easy to find someone like Xianglong who understood him so well, and who worked together with him so well. So, what are you trying to say? Xiangwu stared at Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu knocked on the table and said, "What I want to say is very simple. A new emperor brings his own ministers. Marquis, you should think about the future. His Majesty is a great ruler. When he is around, Northern Yan will not fall into chaos. When he is gone, Northern Yan will undoubtedly fall into chaos. Therefore at this time, your standpoint is very important. But Marquis, your standpoint now is on His Majesty's side. When His Majesty leaves, where are you going to stand? It seems that Marquis, you have no relationship with any of the princes. His Majesty will not allow you to contact any of the princes now." The smile on Xiangwu's face gradually disappeared. Yin Luohua also looked at Chu Xiu with a strange gaze. This person really dared to talk about when the Northern Yan Emperor Xianglong would die in Yanjing City. This question was really a sensitive one. In fact, Yin Luohua had also mentioned this to Xiangwu, asking him to manage his own power and not just limit it to the West Hill Army. When His Majesty was still around, Xiangwu could do whatever he wanted. But once Xianglong was gone, the new emperor might not tolerate Xiangwu, nor might he understand the value of Xiangwu's existence. At this time, only strength and power could really protect oneself. Xiangwu narrowed his eyes and said, "Then what do you mean? Are you saying that you want me to stand on your side?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Marquis, please don't joke. Even if I change my surname to Xiang, I can't become the Northern Yan Emperor. I just want to temporarily ally with you, Marquis, just in case. The Zhenwu Hall's power is in the open, but there is still a part of the Yinma clan's power hidden in the dark. So I want Marquis to help me put these people into the Northern Yan court. Any position is fine, just not particularly important." Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Xiang Wu's face suddenly darkened. He said coldly, "You want to rebel?" Chu Xiu's expression did not change. He said, "I can't start a Northern Yan rebellion. There is the Northern Yan royal family holding the fort, and there are so many experts in the court and military. If I want to overthrow the Northern Yan, do you think these people are enough? As I said, this is just in case. Marquis, don't forget, no matter when, one's own strength is fundamental." With that, Chu Xiu stood up and said, "Marquis, after I say these things today, I will not admit it again. I will give you some time to consider. Once you have made up your mind, just send someone to the Zhenwu Hall to inform me." With that, Chu Xiu left, leaving behind Xiang Wu and Yin Luohua who were deep in thought. When Chu Xiu walked out of the military camp, Lu Jiang he suddenly said, "Boy, do you think that guy will agree to your conditions? Don't forget, that guy's surname is also Xiang. Why did the big sects and families of the past spend so much effort to hunt down the holy sect and the sects that are related to us? They are afraid that we are connected to each other and will do something." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Yes, his surname is Xiang, but it is not the Xiang of Xiang Long. Although he is said to be from the remote royal family, Xiang Wu does not have much sense of belonging to the Northern Yan. We have a choice, but Xiang Wu has no choice. If he chooses to turn a blind eye and continue living like this, then when something happens to Xiang Long, he will be the one in the most passive position. If he chooses to get close to the princes at this time, then it is also impossible. Be it Yin Luohua or Xiang Wu, they are not idiots and will not do such a thing. Xiang Long is not dead yet, and he can't wait to find his next target. This is a big taboo. So, cooperating with me is Xiang Wu's best choice." Chapter 781. Xiang Wu's choice was important to Chu Xiu, but it was also not important. Xiang Long was not dead yet, so Chu Xiu still had time to arrange a lot of things. Even if Xiang Wu did not choose to join forces with him in the end, he would certainly not continue to be a loyal subject to Xiang Long. It should be said that from the beginning, Xiang Wu was not a foolishly loyal person. Otherwise, he would not have come to Chu Xiu to ask for the giant spirit gang's business route. After leaving Xiang Wu's place, Chu Xiu was also ready to test the attitude of the Northern Yan princes. However, Chu Xiu was not familiar with them, so it was a little sensitive to meet them rashly. Everyone knew that Chu Xiu and Xiang Wu had a good relationship. Both sides had always been in contact, so it was not a big deal even if Xiang Long knew that Chu Xiu was going to meet Xiang Wu at this time. However, if Chu Xiu rashly went to meet the other princes, it would be a little sensitive. Therefore, Chu Xiu still needed to borrow Lu Fengxian. He brought Lu Fengxian with the excuse of finding them to find an identity for Lu Fengxian in the Northern Yan court. This excuse was very good. After all, everyone knew that Lu Fengxian was Chu Xiu's good friend. Chu Xiu was not willing to let Lu Fengxian join the Zhenwu Hall as a subordinate and find an official position for him. This was also very normal. After hearing Chu Xiu's plan, Lu Fengxian agreed without thinking. However, on the way, Lu Fengxian said to Chu Xiu, "Brother Chu, now I know that it is really not easy for you to accumulate such a strong family business and to win the position you have now. You have to scheme everywhere. However, Brother Chu, don't you feel that it is very tiring to do this? You only have one life. Why do you force yourself like this?" Lu Fengxian and Chu Xiu had known each other for a long time. At that time, both of them could only be said to be nobodies. And now, the one who was known by the people of the Jianghu was the young Marquis Wen, who was infatuated and had no regrets. He was one of the most dazzling heroes of the younger generation. The other one was Chu Xiu, who was comparable to the older generation of martial artists. He was ferocious and powerful, and he already had a faint demonic aura. It could be said that Lu Fengxian had personally witnessed Chu Xiu walk step by step to the current realm. Along the way, Chu Xiu had almost wandered between life and death several times. Therefore, she was very puzzled as to why Chu Xiu still had to scheme in such a way, even to the extent of physical and mental exhaustion. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's not that I'm forcing myself, but the world is forcing us to move forward. In the chaotic world of Jianghu, if you don't kill people, people will kill you. If you're a step slower, people will surpass you by 2 steps. Everyone wants to be free and unfettered, but unless you hide in a desolate place and go into seclusion, where there are people, there will be Jianghu. How can you be free and unfettered? And in my opinion, going into seclusion in such a place isn't really free and unfettered. It's just escaping and putting yourself in a cage. There's no meaning to it. Brother Liu, it's been so many years, do you still not understand? There are no good people in this Jianghu. Even if it's a few famous chivalrous grandmasters, their unintentional actions can cause even greater disasters. Once a hero draws his sword, it's another 10 years of calamity for the common people. In this Jianghu, it's impossible to truly stay out of it. Just like Brother Liu this time, why did the Yu Palace and Yan Fian dare to scheme against you and not me or Ing Bailu? Because they didn't dare. If they dared to scheme against Ing Bailu, the Shongshui Ing clan would dare to make the Yu Palace disappear from the Jianghu the next day. If the Yu Palace dared to scheme against me, I will let them know what is more terrifying than death. On the other hand, the price they have to pay for scheming against Brother Liu is much smaller. So sometimes it's not that I want to fight, but the way of the world, you and I have no choice but to fight. Lu Fengxian looked at Chu Xiao and was at a loss for words. Originally, he wanted to persuade Chu Xiao, but in the end, he was persuaded by Chu Xiao. But there was nothing he could do. In terms of eloquence, he wasn't as nimble as Chu Xiao. Moreover, the matter with the Yu Palace was indeed handled foolishly. This would probably become a black mark of his life, and people would use it to criticize him whenever they met. Knowing that he couldn't persuade Chu Xiao, Lu Fengxian didn't try to persuade him anymore. As a good friend, most of the time, it didn't matter what you said, but what you did. This time, Chu Xiao took the initiative to come to the sword welcoming conference to save him. In the future, even if Chu Xiao really wanted to rebel, Lu Fengxian would still dare to stand up to the Northern Yan imperial court. The first person Chu Xiao brought Lu Fengxian to look for was the 13th prince of the Northern Yan, Xiang Chong. This prince had a good relationship with Chu Xiao, and the two of them had a lot of cooperation. Moreover, investing in Xiang Chong was a good choice. In the original plot, in the struggle for the throne of the Northern Yan, Xiang Chong was the final winner. Although Chu Xiao didn't know how Xiang Chong did it, he believed that with Chu Xiao's help, Xiang Chong would be able to do the same, or even better. However, when Chu Xiao saw Xiang Chong, he realized that he seemed to have thought wrong about one thing. Xiang Chong was still very polite to Chu Xiao. After welcoming Chu Xiao into the house, Xiang Chong asked with a smile, "Official Chu has just been entrusted with an important task by father. Why do you have the time to come here?" Chu Xiao raised his eyebrows and said, "Your Highness knows about the latest mission of Zhenwu Hall." Xiang Chong nodded and said, "Of course I know. I just came back from Father's place 2 days ago, and Father told me about it. Official Chu's Zhenwu Hall is getting stronger and stronger. It's time to expand. If we can settle the Great Light Temple, then Zhenwu Hall will definitely become an existence comparable to the 5 armies of the country. At that time, I have to congratulate Official Chu. Your Highness has never thought that with the current strength of Zhenwu Hall, it will not end well to provoke the Great Light Temple," Chu Xiao said indifferently. Xiang Chong smiled awkwardly and said, "Official Chu, you have a sense of propriety. When Zhenwu Hall was poor in the past, Official Chu, you could open up the situation. I believe that Official Chu, you will be able to solve this matter perfectly. By the way, Official Chu, why are you here this time?" Chu Xiao said faintly, "Nothing. I just want to trouble your Highness with something. I just want to seek a position for Brother Liu in the Northern Yan court." Xiang Chong said in surprise, "Official Chu doesn't want to leave a position for Brother Liu in Zhenwu Hall?" Chu Xiao shook his head and said, "Brother Liu is my good friend, not my subordinate, so it is not appropriate to give a position in Zhenwu Hall to Brother Liu." Xiang Chong nodded directly and said, "Official Chu, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Brother Liu used to be on the Longhu list, and now he is a martial arts master. Father will be very happy if he can join the Northern Yan court. When I see Father next time, I will mention this matter to him. I will definitely give Brother Liu a position that he will be satisfied with." Chu Xiao cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Highness." After that, Chu Xiao refused Xiang Chong's invitation to stay and left with Lu Fengxian. After leaving Xiang Chong's residence, Lu Fengxian said in surprise, "Why didn't you tell Xiang Chong about those things just now?" Chu Xiao squinted his eyes and said, "I was careless. I didn't expect that Xiang Chong's feelings for Xiang Long are very unusual. He really admires his father." Among the many princes of the Northern Yan, Xiang Long doted on Xiang Chong the most, who looked very similar to him when he was young. Therefore, Xiang Chong also had a special father-son relationship with Xiang Long. Xiang Chong was a smart man. He should know the meaning behind Xiang Long's actions, but he still believed that Xiang Long did not do anything wrong. He even talked like an official with Chu Xiao. One could imagine what Chu Xiao would do if he told Xiang Chong the plan. The first thing he would do would probably be to report him to Xiang Long. In the original plot, it was unknown whether Xiang Chong was able to obtain the throne because he was obedient. Then what should we do now? Lu Fengxian asked. Chu Xiao squinted his eyes and said, if Xiang Chong can't do it, then we'll get someone else. That person is probably very unhappy with Xiang Long. But this time, I will go alone. Brother Liu, you can go into seclusion for a period of time to stabilize your realm. After nightfall, the second prince Xiang Li returned to his residence, reeking of alcohol. Unlike Xiang Chong, Xiang Li's ambition was written all over his face. All these years, he had been constantly trying to win over the important officials of the Northern Yan court. Whether it was to express goodwill or lure them with benefits, he used all sorts of methods. Coupled with the fact that Xiang Long did not stop him, he had really built up a network of contacts. If he could ascend to the throne in the future, these people would be of great help. But now, the only thing that Xiang Li was unhappy about was his father's attitude. Among so many princes, in terms of ability, who could compare to him? After the crown prince was deposed, he, the second prince, was the real crown prince. But after so many years, he still did not get the title of crown prince. He was still the second prince. On the contrary, his younger brother had no ability at all. Just because he looked like the young Xiang Long, he was very favored. This made Xiang Li very unhappy. He had worked so hard, but in the end, he could not compare to a face. As he thought of this angrily, he subconsciously pushed open the door and suddenly saw a black figure sitting in the room. He was instantly shocked, and the smell of alcohol instantly sobered up. Just as he was about to shout, he felt an extremely powerful aura shrouding his body, causing him to swallow his words. Second prince, I mean no harm. I just want to discuss something with you, Chu Xiao said calmly. Chu Xiao, why are you here? Xiang Li closed the door, his face full of surprise. At the same time, he cursed the consecrator of the prince's residence. For princes like Xiang Li, of course, with his high status and strength, there would be a grandmaster consecrator of the Northern Yan royal family consecrator in the prince's residence to prevent any accidents. In the end, Chu Xiao had already snuck into his house, but that grandmaster consecrator was still sleeping soundly. Who was it? Chu Xiao was too strong, or that consecrator was too useless? Looking at Xiang Li, Chu Xiao said word by word, I am here to help second prince fight for the throne. Chapter 782. Xiang Li looked at Chu Xiao in bewilderment. What did Chu Xiao just say? Help him fight for the throne? But isn't he 13th prince's man? Xiang Li couldn't help but sneer. Isn't my 13th brother a little too naive? He actually sent you to play such tricks. Do you think I'll believe him? Xiang Li couldn't be blamed for his suspicions. After all, he had a grudge with Chu Xiao. In the past, Xiang Li had tried to win over the Morgue Manor, but before he could succeed, the manor was completely destroyed by Chu Xiao. Later on, Chu Xiao befriended Xiang Chong, and it was all thanks to Xiang Chong that Chu Xiao could become the governor of the Northern Yan's Martial Suppression Hall. Therefore, Xiang Li subconsciously thought that Chu Xiao was sent by his brother to sow discord. Chu Xiao shook his head. It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. What's important is that second prince, you need to grasp every bit of power you can. Otherwise, the throne will not be yours in the future. Xiang Li sneered. What a joke. If you say it's not mine, then it's not mine? I am the Northern Yan's second prince. In terms of succession, my 13th brother is still far behind. Chu Xiao said indifferently, but you still haven't been appointed as the crown prince. Anger flashed across Xiang Li's face. This was the biggest sore spot in his heart. I've been in power for more than 10 years compared to my 13th brother. Whether it's in the court or in the pugilistic world, my power is stronger than his. Chu Xiao still said indifferently, but you still haven't been appointed as the crown prince. Xiang Li shouted. I've been assisting Imperial Father in handling some royal affairs. What does Xiang Chong know? He only knows how to fool around with some ignorant pugilistic people. How insolent! Chu Xiu still said indifferently, but you still haven't been appointed as the crown prince. Xiangli was about to go crazy. Can't you say something else? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, no, because this sentence is the key. You are stronger than your 13th brother in every aspect, and you even have the advantage in terms of age and status, but you still haven't been made the crown prince. In fact, when you were fighting with Xiang Chong, Xiang Long even helped him. Don't you know what this means? In the eyes of others, your advantages are your advantages, but in Xiang Long's eyes, your so-called advantages are not even worth a fart. No matter how great your advantage is, it cannot be greater than Xiang Chong's face. That face is almost exactly the same as Xiang Long's when he was young. Passing down the throne to Xiang Chong was a wonderful thing. Especially for a great ruler like Xiang Long, him passing the throne to Xiang Chong represented a new life for him. So, Your Highness, the things you've prepared now are far from enough. You've done everything you can, but it's very likely that in the end, it won't be as effective as Xiang Long's last words. Chu Xiu's words pierced straight into Xiang Li's heart. He also knew about these things, but he had never spoken about them in front of outsiders. Why did he put in so much effort to suppress Xiang Chong? It was all because of Xiang Long's unfairness. He had done so much and prepared so much, but in the end, the ownership of the throne was still unclear. This made Xiang Li feel as if he had wasted all these years. Everything he had done was of no use at all. After a moment of silence, Xiang Li said, you have a good relationship with my 13th brother. Why are you helping me now? According to what you said, if you help my 13th brother, won't your chances of seizing the throne be higher than mine? Chu Xiu said lightly, it's very simple. I've fallen out with His Majesty. You should know about the incident at the Great Light Temple. His Majesty is indeed a great ruler of his generation. He's quite skilled at using such tactics. Xiang Li had also heard about this incident. At that time, he had even secretly mocked Chu Xiu. However, Xiang Li still asked doubtfully, what does falling out with father have to do with whether you help my 13th brother or not? Hearing Xiang Li's question, Chu Xiu also shook his head slightly. This second prince's brain was not very bright. There were some things that he still did not understand. It was no wonder that Xiang Long did not give him the position of crown prince. If Xiang Li's ability was so outstanding that he could beat all the princes, then no matter how much Xiang Chong looked like Xiang Long, he would not be a threat to the second prince's position. Chu Xiu said calmly, my relationship with Xiang Chong is not bad, but I'm still an outsider. At a time like this, Xiang Chong doesn't even dare to speak up for me. What else can I count on him? Xiang Li thought about it and suddenly laughed coldly. Chu Xiu, don't forget that my surname is also Xiang. Here you are also an outsider. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, that's very good. When Xiang Chong ascends the throne, see if he will remember that your surname is also Xiang. We were born from the same root, so why rush to destroy each other? In the struggle for the throne in the past, brothers killed each other. I don't need to say that kind of cruel methods. Your Highness, you should also know that. Xiang Li was silent for a while and suddenly said, how can you help me? Chu Xiu stood up and said in a deep voice, how can I help you? The entire Yinma clan supports second prince to ascend the throne. Is this enough? Xiang Li trembled violently. The Yinma clan was a colossus with unfathomable depths. But Xiang Li was not an idiot. He said in a low voice, if I agree, then I will be inviting a wolf into the house. Chu Xiu said lightly, if you don't agree, then you don't even have the qualifications to invite a wolf into the house. You will be directly driven out of the house. Second prince is of noble character and unquestionable integrity. You value the interests of the Northern Yan more than your own future. I will not say anything more. At worst, if I cannot survive in the Northern Yan, I will bring the people of Zhenwu Hall back to the Guanzhong torture room. Anyway, the Yinma clan is used to wandering. It is not a big deal to move to another place. Just as Chu Xiu was about to leave, Xiang Li suddenly said, I agree. Xiang Li's eyes were a little bloodshot and looked a little scary. He knew that Chu Xiu was rushing to cooperate with him with no good intentions. He also knew that he was inviting a wolf into the house. However, he had been longing for the throne for more than 10 years. In the end, he found that his efforts might be in vain. Everything he had thought about before might be a dream. How could Xiang Li be willing to accept this? So even if he knew that the cup in front of him was poison, as long as it could quench his thirst, he would drink it without hesitation. Chu Xiu's mouth curved into a smile and said, "Your Highness, rest assured. You will know in the future that you will not regret cooperating with me. But for now, Your Highness needs to help me with one thing. That is to help me arrange some Yinma clan members into the Northern Yan court. They don't need a high position, as long as they can move freely in Yanjing City." Xiang Li nodded woodenly. Since he had already agreed to Chu Xiu's request, there was no turning back. Chu Xiu's figure was instantly wrapped in a layer of pitch-black devil qi. He hid in the darkness and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After leaving the prince's residence, Lu Jianghe sighed in Chu Xiu's mind. "I didn't realize that you're quite glib with your words. You easily tricked that bunch of brats." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Tricked? I didn't trick them. If you want someone to cooperate with you wholeheartedly, you must let them see the benefits. Whether it is Xiang Wu or Xiang Li, as long as we succeed, one of them can ascend to the throne, while the other will have a bright future. He can control the entire Northern Yan military. I didn't lie to them about these benefits. Tricking them is only a temporary benefit. Only benefits are eternal choices." Lu Jiang he didn't say anything else because he suddenly realized that he, or the Kunlun devil cult of the past, had actually done a lot of stupid things. Part of Chu Xiu's style of doing things was actually very similar to the Kunlun devil cult of the past. They were extremely ruthless and would not stop until they were dead. But at the same time, Chu Xiu had another style of doing things that the Kunlun devil cult had neglected, and that was to leave a path for others. Using benefits to connect all parties, the one who would benefit in the end would be himself, but he would not stop others from having no way out. And the Kunlun devil cult of the past had obviously gone too far. It was to the extent that if the Kunlun devil cult was not destroyed, the other martial arts forces would not be able to make a name for themselves. In this way, when the Kunlun devil cult was destroyed, it was not strange that the major sects could be so united. His own arrangements were temporarily completed, and it was time for Chu Xiu to consider the matter of the Great Light Temple. It was a big project to insert the Yinma lineage into the Northern Yan imperial court, and it required meticulous work. If it was done too hastily and was discovered by others, it would be terrible. Therefore, during this period of time, Chu Xiu also had to pretend to be a loyal subject for a period of time. For now, he had to deceive the task in front of him. Chu Xiu asked Lu Jianghe, "You said that there are treasures buried near the Great Light Temple. What exactly is buried there?" Since he had already told Chu Xiu everything, Lu Jianghe did not hide anything. He said directly, "Actually, there are 3 places where the treasures are hidden. One was personally buried by me, and it's the closest to the Great Light Temple. The other 2 were buried by the bastards under me. I only know the general location. The things that the bastards buried were just some common cultivation resources and so on. They were used as backups, and there was nothing special about them. As for the things that I personally buried, it was actually some blood. The blood of some powerhouses from 500 years ago." Chu Xiu's heart skipped a beat. He asked, "How strong were they?" Lu Jianghe laughed coldly and said, "How strong were they? They were stronger than you can imagine. 500 years ago, was the current celestial master of the celestial master abode of Mount Longhu strong enough? Was the personal disciple of the celestial master Ning Xuanji, the deputy sect leader of the true martial arts sect, strong enough? Was the current abbot of the Great Light Temple, who had cultivated the indestructible golden body, strong enough? Was Kunwu, who was ranked 3rd in the world-famous sword manual, and Gu Qingqing, the powerhouse of the Wind Cloud Sword Tomb, known as the Sword Saint, strong enough? If these people are not strong enough, I even have a drop of Patriarch Duga's blood. Tell me, is it strong enough?" Chapter 783. Lu Jianghe really shocked Chu Xiu this time. God knows where he got the blood of so many powerhouses. The people he mentioned should have reached the heaven and earth mystic illumination 500 years ago. The most surprising thing was that he even got a drop of Dugu Weiwei's blood. How did he do it? Moreover, Chu Xiu roughly understood why Lu Jianghe didn't put these things in the Kunlun devil cult but in the outside world. It seemed that there was a drop of Dugu Weiwei's blood among them. This was a bit too taboo. With your strength back then, how did you get the blood of these powerhouses? Chu Xiu didn't care about Lu Jianghe's face and asked directly. Lu Jiang he seemed to be humiliated and shouted, "What do you mean? What's wrong with my strength? Are you looking down on me? My position in the holy sect was second only to the 4 great demon sovereigns." Chu Xiu didn't say anything. He kept staring at Lu Jianghe with his spiritual power, which made Lu Jianghe a little embarrassed. Lu Jianghe coughed and hesitated for a moment before he said, I like to study all kinds of martial arts. So when those people fought with the 4 great demon sovereigns, I would usually go and watch." Hearing Lu Jianghe's words, Chu Xiu suddenly realized that this guy was just there to watch and pick up the leftovers. It was just a drop of blood. They were all from the Kunlun devil cult, and Lu Jianghe didn't take anything else. The 4 great demon sovereigns probably wouldn't fall out with him. But how did you get a drop of Dugu Weiwei's blood? Who was it that could injure Dugu Weiwei? Could it be Ning Xuanji? Chu Xiu was also curious about this. It was one thing for Lu Jianghe to pick up the other's blood, but how could Dugu Weiwei be injured? Could it be that Lu Jianghe had watched the battle between Dugu Weiwei and Ning Xuanji? Lu Jianghe shook his head and said, "Of course it's not Ning Xuanji. If Ning Xuanji fought with Sect Master, do you think I would still dare to watch? She was the strongest in the Wind Cloud Sword Mound, and she was known as the #1 swordsman in 1,000 years, Sword Saint Gu Qingqing. This person was indeed a character. He made a bet with the cult leader. If he could win against him in one move, then the people of the Kunlun Devil cult would not be allowed to appear within 100 miles of the Wind Cloud Sword Mound. If he loses, then he will lead the entire Wind Cloud Sword Mound to serve the Kunlun Devil cult. From then on, he will be the 5th Devil Lord under the Kunlun Devil cult." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Did he win?" Lu Jianghe sighed and said, "He won, but he also lost. You weren't born in that era, so you don't know how strong the cult leader was. Aside from Ning Xuanji, the cult leader wouldn't lose to anyone. But Gu Qingqing turned into the Kunwu Sword Soul and slashed with the strongest sword. She cut the cult leader's hand and gave up her life to win against the cult leader. According to the rules, he won, but at the same time, he lost his life." Chu Xiu was silent, but tempestuous waves had already surged in his heart. Not being born in that era, Chu Xiu really didn't understand how strong Dugu Weiwei was. But through Lu Jianghe's description, Chu Xiu could hear what it meant to be overpowering. The #1 swordsman in 1,000 years, wielding the 3rd-rank sword in the sword book of famed swords, was only able to hurt one of Dugu Weiwei's hands. That kind of power was enough to make people feel hopeless. Chu Xiu didn't ask about what happened next, because the Wind Cloud Sword Mound was still there. In the end, Dugu Weiwei must have kept his promise and not touched the Wind Cloud Sword Mound. In fact, this kind of thing was very normal. At Dugu Weiwei's level, he would disdain lying and breaking promises. "Right, why did you collect so many elites' blood? Is it a lot? Can it be used for cultivation?" Lu Jianghe shook his head and said, "No, there is only 1 drop of each." "What can a drop of blood be used for?" Chu Xiu practiced the blood god demonic art, and it was very magical. But if he wanted to rely on other people's blood to cultivate, the amount of blood needed was huge. Even a few drops of blood from a supreme expert would be useless. Lu Jianghe snorted and said, "Brat, you got lucky. In the past, this honorable one had just researched a way to use the blood god demonic art. Using the power of blood to imitate the martial intent of the past experts, but using the opponent's blood as a guide. This honorable one named this art the blood shadow art. The cultivation process is already very perfect. Back then, this honorable one placed the blood in the formation to nurture its power, allowing the martial intent to be more complete. But at that time, before this honorable one went to cultivate, something happened. Now you got lucky. After 500 years of nurturing, the martial intent in the blood should have been nurtured to the peak. It can be used directly for cultivation. But brat, let me say this first. The blood of the others belongs to you. I don't have a physical body now, so I can't use it. But you have to keep the blood of one of them for me. I can use it." "Whose blood?" "The 9th Palace Master of the 7 Absolute Palace of Jiansong Mountain. She is also an extraordinary woman. The power of the soul transfer art is not inferior to that guy Nangong Wuming's mental demon rotation art. After the nurturing of her blood is successful, it will help to repair the remnant soul, so this honorable one wants it." Chu Xiu nodded. After all, it was someone else's thing, and he would be embarrassed to take it all. However, he had never heard of the name Seven Absolute Palace. Of course, this was also normal. The war between the righteous and demonic 500 years ago was enough to be regarded as a great calamity in Jianghu. Countless sects were completely destroyed in this calamity. Just like the Iron Emperor Castle, it was a force that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Sword King city now. In the end, 500 years ago, it was blown up by an arrow from Dugu Weiwei and was completely annihilated. After learning about the places where the treasures were hidden, Chu Xiu did not immediately take action. Instead, he prepared to return to the Suppression Martial Hall to think about it. He had too many things to do recently. The layout had to be carried out one after another. He had to first complete the layout of the entire Hidden Devil lineage before he could consider the matters of the Great Light Temple. This was also a troublesome matter. Chu Xiu had to go around the Great Light Temple to excavate Lu Jianghe's treasures. At the same time, he had to complete the task given by Xianglong. No matter what, it would lead the monks of the Great Light Temple out. Now, Chu Xiu did not want to be the knife in Xianglong's hand and fight head-on with the Great Light Temple. Therefore, he really needed to think about this matter. After returning to the Suppression Martial Hall, he found that Shen Feiying of the Giant Spirit Gang was also there. After becoming the leader of the Giant Spirit Gang, he understood his position very well. With Chu Xiu around, he could be unscrupulous in the Northern Yen martial arts world. He could even develop the Giant Spirit Gang to a point where it was stronger than when Feng Datong was still around. If Chu Xiu was not around, it was estimated that the meddlesome guys would jump out to find trouble with him. Therefore, he could be said to be the most loyal to Chu Xiu. The relationship between the two parties was one where they would suffer together, and the other where they would prosper together. Seeing that Chu Xiu had returned, Shen Feiying quickly walked over and said with a smile on his face, "Official Chu, previously when you stepped into the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm, the gift I gave you was a little shabby. It just so happened that my subordinates found something good recently, so I immediately asked someone to send it over. Just treat it as a congratulatory gift to you." As he spoke, Shen Feiying waved his hand directly. Immediately, several members of the Giant Spirit Gang brought over a giant bird with them. The giant bird was as tall as a person. Its head was like an eagle's, its feathers were light blue, and its golden eyes were flashing with a fierce light. If it were not for the two chains inscribed with arrays at its feet, which restrained its movements, it would probably peck the few martial artists around it to death. It's the cub of the ancient ferocious beast, the blue sky falcon. It's said to have the bloodline of the golden-winged roc. It can disappear without a trace after flapping its wings. I originally thought that this thing was extinct, but I didn't expect my subordinates to catch a baby bird that accidentally fell into the water in the river. After I learned about it, I immediately asked someone to send it to you, sir. The giant bird was as tall as a person, but it was still just a baby. Of course, if this thing was an adult, even a martial Dao Grandmaster would not be able to defeat it, and it would not have been caught by the Giant Spirit Gang. Chu Xiu was not interested in this thing, and he did not want to raise a mount or anything. Chen Qingdi had a black tiger, and the Holy Lady of the Lunar Worshipping Cult also had a black panther. It did not sound good for him to raise a bird. Therefore, Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Reinforce the array on the chains and keep this thing at the door to support the facade." Shen Feiying's face twitched. This really did not take the usual path. This was an ancient ferocious beast, but Chu Xiu raised it as a watchdog. His brain circuit was really strange. Of course, Shen Feiying could not be bothered with these things. He gave the gift, and it was not his business what Chu Xiu wanted to do with it. Gang leader Shen, you know my character. If you have something to say, just say it, Chu Xiu said lightly. Shen Feiying rushed to give him a ferocious beast's baby, not just to curry favor with him. There must be something to ask of someone. Of course, Chu Xiu did not reject this. People like Shen Feiying were the ones who understood the rules. Shen Feiying smiled and said, "As expected, I can't hide it from Lord Shen. It's just a small matter. The Chonglin Jiang family, which is close to the Giant Spirit Gang, has fought with the Giant Spirit Gang several times for the trade route. That place originally belonged to the Giant Spirit Gang, but the Jiang family." Before Shen Feiying could finish speaking, Chu Xiu said, "I'll have Tanya go with you later." Shen Feiying was stunned, and then his face immediately bloomed with a smile. He quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, Lord." For the current Chu Xiu, he was too lazy to care about such a small matter. He only knew that Shen Feiying was now following him, and that he was a sensible person. That was enough. Whether it was the Jiang family robbing the giant spirit gang's trade route, or the giant spirit gang robbing the Jiang family's trade route, was it important to Chu Xiu? It was not even as important as what to eat for dinner tonight. After getting a satisfactory reply, Shen Feiying left in high spirits. However, at this time, Chu Xiu looked at Shen Feiying's back and touched his chin. He seemed to have thought of how to deal with the Great Light Temple. Of course, this move was a little disgusting, but it was the Great Light Temple that was disgusting, not him. Chapter 784. Chu Xiu already had a plan in mind for the Great Guangming Temple, but he still had to think it through carefully. If he really provoked Su Ci, who had already stepped into the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm, then not to mention the treasures buried by Lu Jianghe, even if it was the treasures left by Duge Weiwei, Chu Xiu would run away immediately. Just after Chu Xiu pondered for a few days, before he could officially take action, a person that Chu Xiu did not expect came to him. That person was Bai Wuji of the drifting snow city of the far north. The moment he saw Chu Xiu, Bai Wuji directly bowed to Chu Xiu and said eagerly, "Official Chu, please save my drifting snow city of the far north once. From now on, my drifting snow city of the far north is willing to serve Official Chu as our master, forever and ever." Bai Wuji's words stunned Chu Xiu. What kind of trick was this? Bai Wuji's oath was very serious. Directly recognizing Chu Xiu as his master, this was simply treating himself as a slave. If it was someone else, Chu Xiu would still believe it, but the problem was the drifting snow city of the far north. Chu Xiu did not believe it. Especially that guy Bai Han Tian, although he looked rough, he was actually very scheming. Chu Xiu had even been deceived by him once. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Save your drifting snow city of the far north? With the strength of your drifting snow city of the far north, do you still need me to save you?" Bai Han Tian is not someone to be trifled with. Bai Wuji's face had a trace of a complicated expression. "My father is dead, Bai Han Feng is also dead." Chu Xiu was stunned. Both Martial Dao Grandmasters of the drifting snow city of the far north are dead? What is going on? Who did it? In the past, it was Bai Han Tian who made the decision, sacrificing his son in exchange for the interests of the entire drifting snow city of the far north. When Bai Wuji found out about this, he still held a grudge against Bai Han Tian. But Bai Han Tian was his father after all. Now that Bai Han Tian was dead, Bai Wuji's emotions were complicated. Hearing Chu Xiu's question, Bai Wuji sighed. Father died at the hands of the Northern Realm's rogue cultivator, Qi Ling twin swords. Qi Ling's twin swords were not made by one person, but by two people. Moreover, they were twins. When the two of them learned the sword together, their mental state was the same. When they worked together, their power would increase by several folds. These two people had a grudge with my father when he was young, but because of the power of the Drifts Now City, they didn't dare to seek revenge. Later on, the two of them hid in the Qiling Mountains to cultivate. After both of them became Martial Dao Grandmasters, they didn't dare to provoke my father. Not too long ago, the incident in the Drifts Now City happened and they found an opportunity to sneak attack their father when he was out alone, killing him. After my father died, all the major powers in the Northern Realms coveted our Drifts Now City, suppressing us both in the open and in the dark. Bai Han Feng also died in the hands of the evil extreme sect's rising star, Yi Tianxia. Right now, our Drifts Now City is in a precarious situation. If Official Chu is willing to help our Drifts Now City, our Drifts Now City is naturally willing to serve Official Chu as our master. Honestly speaking, ever since the incident in the Drifts Now City, Chu Xiu really didn't pay much attention to the matters of the Drifts Now City. The Drifts Now City used a dead man to scare the surrounding powers for so many years. The consequences were very severe. To the surrounding powers, if the Drifts Now City really had the strength, they would also obediently submit to it. The strong preyed on the weak. This was a very common thing in the pugilistic world. But in the end, the Drifts Now City actually used such a method to deceive them. At this instant, the powers of the Northern Realms all felt a sense of humiliation. Not only did the Drifts Now City humiliate their character, but they also humiliated their intelligence. So from that time onwards, Chu Xiu was sure that the Drifts Now City would usher in a period of weakness, and there was even a possibility that they would be annihilated. But he didn't expect that this time would come so quickly. How long had it been since then, and the Drifts Now City actually couldn't hold on any longer? This was truly a case of everyone kicking a collapsing wall. Chu Xiu rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. Since the two grandmasters of your Drifts Now City have been killed, how did you manage to hold on until now? Bai Wuji sighed. My third uncle, Bai Xiaotian, was forced to step into the martial Dao grandmaster stage by the omniscient sect. That's how he managed to recover for the time being. But there are countless experts in the Drifts Now City. A grandmaster won't be able to hold on for long. So I can only ask for help from you. Official Chu. Bai Wuji looked at Chu Xiu with a pleading gaze. He was now forced into a corner. The Drifts Now City was surrounded by enemies on all sides. Who could he ask for help from? He could ask the Great Light Temple. They also liked to meddle in other people's business. But the things the Great Light Temple meddled in were all related to the demonic path. And this time, although there were people from the demonic path who took action, in fact, it was the Drifts Now City who brought this upon themselves. The Great Light Temple would not intervene. So after thinking about it, the only one who could help the Drifts Now City now was Chu Xiu. Bai Wuji knew Chu Xiu for a very long time, so he was very clear that if he wanted Chu Xiu to step forward, there was only one thing that could move him, and that was benefits. And for the Drifts Now City, the only thing they could offer was themselves. If this still couldn't move Chu Xiu, then Bai Wuji would really be in despair. Chu Xiu looked at Bai Wuji and gently raised his eyebrows. To tell the truth, he was also a little surprised by Bai Wuji's current change. In the past, when Chu Xiu first met Bai Wuji, the other party was arrogant and had no regard for anyone and everyone. He didn't even put Nye Donglu in his eyes, who was much more famous than him at that time. The martial world is like a knife. The years drive people to grow old. Bai Wuji's character had been tempered by all kinds of setbacks, and was no longer the same as the past. If it was the Bai Wuji of the past, he would rather die than choose to submit to Chu Xiu and bow his head in front of Chu Xiu. Amidst the silence when Bai Wuji was on the verge of despair, Chu Xiu finally spoke. I can help you, but I'm very curious about one thing. Don't you hate the Northern Drifts Now City? After all, you were almost used as fuel and sacrificed to a dead person. Bai Wuji was silent for a long time. If I say I don't resent them, that would be a lie. But the Drifts Now City is the place where I was born and raised. A force that has been passed down for thousands of years. I don't want to see the Drifts Now City disappear completely in my generation. Since Father and the others are wrong, then I will make up for the Drifts Now City in the future. Chu Xiu said indifferently. Then have you ever thought that if you choose to follow me, the Drifts Now City might die a more miserable death in the end? You know my identity. Once you choose to join me, then some things will no longer be up to you. Although the Drifts Now City was now on the verge of annihilation, but no matter what, it was still a great force that had been passed down for thousands of years. The foundation was the Drifts Now City's greatest advantage. As long as they could survive this calamity, the Drifts Now City would definitely have a chance to recover in the future. Chu Xiu would not suffer a loss by taking the Drifts Now City under his command at this time. Moreover, after taking the Drifts Now City, it would also be of help to his plan against the Great Guangming Temple. But Chu Xiu could tolerate everything else. But what he could not tolerate the most was traitors. If the Drifts Now City chose to betray them in the end, the consequences would be even worse than being annihilated now. Bai Wuji said firmly, in life, every moment is a gamble. My father made the wrong bet. He placed his bet on a dead man. Now I'm betting on you, Official Chu. Regardless of success or failure, I am willing to bear the consequences. Chu Xiu stood up and said in a deep voice, it's good that you are prepared. Later, I will let Pang who personally leads some people to your Drifts Now City. Bai Wuji's face showed a trace of difficulty. Sir, just Pang who alone may not be enough. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, do you think that my name, Chu Xiu, can't control people? With Chu Xiu's ferocious reputation in the Northern Yen pugilistic world, coupled with the presence of a martial arts grandmaster like Pang who, other than those from the Temple of Great Light, everyone else would have to weigh their own weight. Bai Wuji shook his head quickly and said, I don't mean that. It's just that the crisis my Drifts Now City is encountering this time is a bit big. Previously, the people of the evil pole sect took the initiative to attack us, and Yi Tianxia even killed Bai Hanfeng. After my third uncle stepped into the martial arts master realm, he was not familiar with the power of the real pellet state. He fought with him and seriously injured him. Yi Tianxia is the next heir of the evil pole sect, and his status is noble. Now that he is seriously injured by my drifts now city, I believe the evil pole sect will definitely not let it go, so I ask Sir to go in person. Hearing Bai Wuji say this, Chu Xiu was really a little surprised. Chu Xiu knew Yi Tianxia. He had fought with Yi Tianxia more than once in the early days. Among the bright demon lineage, this person was indeed a character, not to mention the evil geniuses of the moon-worshipping cult. He practiced the vicious beast technique with a human body, and he even swallowed the vicious beast's Niden. His power was terrifying. After Chu Xiu and others stepped into the martial arts master realm one after another, Yi Tianxia's strength was enough to rank in the top 3 of the Longhu list. It was normal for such a person to kill a martial Dao grandmaster above his level, so Chu Xiu was not surprised at all. But Bai Xiaotian, a person who had just stepped into the martial arts master realm and hadn't even fully stabilized his own power, could seriously injure Yi Tianxia. This was strange. Well, I will go with you. The moon-worshipping cult has been hit hard, and the evil pole sect still has the mood to come out and make trouble. It seems that they didn't use their full strength in that battle. The corners of Chu Xiu's mouth could not help but reveal a faint sneer. The evil pole sect followed the moon-worshipping cult's lead. Even if it was far away in the northern Yen, the evil pole sect should have gone all out in the last war between the righteous and demonic factions. But now it seemed that the power of the evil pole sect was not affected. Just when Chu Xiu gathered the people and was ready to set off, Lu Fengxian suddenly walked out and said, "Wait, Brother Chu, take me with you. It's too boring to cultivate behind closed doors all day. I will also help." Chu Xiu said in surprise, "How many days have you been behind closed doors? Don't you need to familiarize yourself with the power of the real pellet state?" LV Fengxian rubbed her head and shook her head. "I don't think that's necessary. I feel very familiar with my current power, as if I should have been able to control it in the first place. I don't know if this is the effect of LV Wunho's soul fragment." Chu Xiu was a little speechless. People are really different. Some people's luck is so good that they can even skip the process of cultivating behind closed doors. Chapter 785. In the hall of the fluttering snow city, the lights were dim. Compared to the bustling scene before, it was like a different place. A pale middle-aged man sat below. Above him was the exclusive seat of the fluttering snow city lord, but he didn't take it. This person was the only martial arts grandmaster in the entire fluttering snow city, Bai Xiaotian. In the fluttering snow city, Bai Wuji had the identity of the heir and status, while Bai Xiaotian had the strength. With the two of them, the fluttering snow city did not collapse. Bai Xiaotian was previously a collateral relative of the fluttering snow city. He was middle-aged and was a deacon of the fluttering snow city. After all, it was a major force that had existed for thousands of years. Although there were not many martial arts grandmasters in the fluttering snow city, there were many deacons like Bai Xiaotian who had reached the unity of heaven and man realm. It was just that Bai Xiaotian had always been very low-key in the past. In addition, he was a collateral relative, so he did not attract much attention. No one expected that he would be the one to turn the tide and save the fluttering snow city. Of course, he could only save the fluttering snow city once, but not forever. Because the evil sect thought that the old ancestor of the fluttering snow city was still around, they had been living in peace with the fluttering snow city for so many years. There were no conflicts between the two sides. Even because of their identity as a demonic sect, the evil sect felt a sense of inferiority when facing the fluttering snow city. After all, in the entire north, there was only one demonic sect, the evil sect. Moreover, it was right under the nose of the Great Light Temple. If they did not keep a low profile, they would have been killed long ago. Now that the lie of the fluttering snow city had been exposed, and Bai Xiaotian had seriously injured Yi Tianxia, one could imagine what kind of revenge the fluttering snow city would face. In the entire fluttering snow city, other than the Bai clan, there were also some disciples with other surnames who were managers or deacons. As soon as the news came out, some of these people had already run away. Even the Bai clan was unsettled. This huge fluttering snow city seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Looking up at the seat that belonged to the city lord, Bai Xiaotian coughed and laughed self-deprecatingly. The position of city lord of the Drifts Now city was something that even Bai Xiaotian didn't dare to think about in the past. But now, he didn't even have the interest to sit there. He was just a collateral relative of the northern drifting snow city. Logically speaking, now that he had become a martial Dao grandmaster, He would be a prominent figure no matter where he went. There was no need for him to be buried together with the northern drifting snow city, but he didn't want to leave. It wasn't that Bai Xiaotian was very loyal to the Bai clan. In fact, the treatment he received as a branch family disciple wasn't bad, but at the very least, it couldn't be compared to the treatment he received from the main family. It would be a lie to say that he didn't have any resentment towards the Bai clan. What he wanted to protect here wasn't the Bai clan but the entire Drifts Now city of the extreme north. This was a place that contained half of his memories. Chu Xiu had once asked Bai Wuji why he wanted to protect the Drifts Now city. Bai Wuji's answer was the same as Bai Xiaotian's. This was why the two of them, an old man and a young man, were able to stabilize the entire Drifts Now city, preventing it from collapsing. Bai Xiaotian knew that Bai Wuji had gone to seek help from Chu Xiu. Although Chu Xiu had agreed, he didn't have much hope. Rather than relying on outsiders, he might as well fight to the death himself. The reason why he didn't stop Bai Wuji was because he hoped that Bai Wuji could escape this calamity and live on. As for himself, he was born here, grew up here, and died here in the end. It didn't seem like a bad choice either. At this moment, a disciple suddenly ran in anxiously. "City Lord! Bad news! The omniscient sect has come knocking." Bai Xiaotian waved his hand and said, "How many times have I said it? I'm not the city lord. The Drifts Now city of the extreme north no longer has a city lord. Don't panic. So what if the omniscient sect is here?" Before this, the omniscient sect didn't even dare to speak loudly in front of our Drifts Now city. Even at a time like this, don't let our Drifts Now city lose face. As he spoke, Bai Xiaotian walked straight out of the hall. Outside the Drifts Now city of the extreme north, several hundred omniscient sect martial artists were glaring at the frozen city in front of them with malevolent demonic qi and killing intent. Although the omniscient sect only sent several hundred people, these several hundred people were the elites of the entire omniscient sect. It was enough to destroy the Drifts Now city of the extreme north that was already on its last breaths. The leader was a martial artist completely shrouded in black robes, exuding a sinister demonic qi fluctuation that fused with the surrounding heaven and earth essence energy. Even the white snow under his feet was dyed black. This person was the hall master of the omniscient sect's demon sacrifice hall, Yan Lu Bing. Although this person was not famous in the pugilistic world, in the omniscient sect, he was one of the few important characters second only to the sect master. The omniscient sect developed in a low-profile manner in the northern plains. The entire omniscient sect had several halls, each with their own duties. Yan Liubing's demon sacrifice hall was responsible for worshipping the demon god. 500 years ago, when the omniscient sect was still a subordinate of the Kunlun devil cult, the demon sacrifice hall worshipped Dugu Weiwei. Their bootlicking was simply too blatant. Therefore, the demon sacrifice hall master of that era had an extremely high status, even having the status of a demon envoy of the Kunlun devil cult like the sect master of the omniscient sect. Of course, even if the omniscient sect had changed their target of worship, their strength would still be extraordinary. At this time, looking at the Drifts Now city of the extreme north, Yan Lu Bing lightly said, "Tianxia, what did you do?" The Drifts Now city of the extreme north that was already on the verge of collapse was turned into such a state by you? Such a great merit has been turned into a laughingstock by you. Previously, the omniscient sect had sent a junior like Yi Tianxia to deal with the Drifts Now city of the extreme north. It was not arrogance, but the omniscient sect deliberately wanted to create merit and qualifications for Yi Tianxia, so that he could smoothly take over the omniscient sect in the future. At that time, the Drifts Now city of the extreme north was already in a state of panic, and Yi Tianxia himself had the strength comparable to a martial Dao Grandmaster, so it should not be a problem for him to destroy the Drifts Now city of the extreme north. Among the entire younger generation of martial artists, only Chu Xiu had done something to destroy the forces of the pugilistic world. Now, if Yi Tianxia could successfully destroy the Drifts Now city of the extreme north, not to mention being comparable to Chu Xiu, he might at least be able to surpass Feng Qishao on the Longhu leaderboard and become the first on the Longhu leaderboard. In the end, who would have thought that such a simple matter would be messed up by him? Yi Tianxia said with a sullen expression, "That Bai Hanfeng was so weak. Who would have thought that someone in the Drifts Now city of the extreme north would break through to the martial Dao Grandmaster realm and start fighting with his life before familiarizing himself with his power? It doesn't matter if he wants to die, but I haven't lived long enough. If I don't run away, I'm afraid I'll be dragged down with him." Speaking of which, Yi Tianxia was also very sullen. Previously, he rushed to help the moon-worshipping sect, but in the end, he did not end up well. He was scolded by the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping sect, saying that he was not as good as Chu Xiao, who was invited to help. Moreover, before Zhong Xian stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, he also exchanged a few moves with him, causing him to suffer a loss. To put it simply, after the battle between the righteous and the demonic, some people benefited and some became famous. Only he, Yi Tianxia, did not get anything. Moreover, when he returned to his own territory, he messed up such a simple task. Yan Lubing did not say anything, only shaking her head with slight pity. Yi Tianxia's strength was considered very good among the young people of the omniscient sect, but compared to monsters like Chu Xiao and Zhang Qingzhen, he was still too far away. He and the sect master were probably too harsh on them. At this moment, Bai Xiaotian walked up the city wall with his men and looked at the people of the omniscient sect. He said coldly, "When a tiger falls to the plains, he will be bullied by dogs. Back then, when my Drifts Now city of the extreme north was at its peak, did you guys dare to be so presumptuous?" Yan Lubing said indifferently, "How can a fox borrowing the tiger's might be considered a tiger? What a joke. If you guys didn't use that dead person to prop up the facade, do you think your Drifts Now city of the extreme north can still exist until now?" Bai Xiaotian sneered, "Then didn't your omniscient sect also be scared by a dead person for decades?" After a moment of silence, Yan Lubing said indifferently, "I'm not here to talk nonsense with you guys. You guys know why my omniscient sect is here. Surrender and hand over the entire Drifts Now city of the extreme north and everything within it. I can make the decision and spare your lives." Behind Bai Hantian, the eyes of some Drifts Now city of the extreme north even wavered a little. With the current strength of the extreme north's Drifts Now city, they could not stop the omniscient sect at all. Now that the other party even said such words, if they resisted, then they would really be resisting to their deaths. Seeing the expressions of the others, Bai Xiaotian sighed and said, "If you guys want to surrender, then surrender." Some of the martial artists present were somewhat tempted, but no one stood out. Being a traitor in public, the martial artists of the extreme north's Drifts Now city were not shameless to such an extent. But at this time Bai Hantian said coldly, "But you guys can surrender, but I can't. Right now, all the array formations in the extreme north's Drifts Now city have been activated by me. Once your omniscient sect attacks, I will self-destruct the array formations and destroy the entire Drifts Now city of the extreme north rather than let you succeed." Yan Lubing smiled coldly and said, "Using your own things to threaten me? What a joke. You guys are not willing to live, and you guys are not willing to live. Fine then, I'll take you guys to sacrifice to the demonic god and let you guys have a taste of what it means to be stuck between life and death." Yan Lubing also did not want to talk nonsense with the people of the extreme north's Drifts Now city. He was just about to make a move when he heard a voice. "Sacrifice to the demonic god? I seem to have heard of it before. Wasn't the one your omniscient sect worshipped previously Dugu Weiwei? Why, now it has changed to some other unorthodox evil ghosts. Your faith is so weak, how laughable." Yan Liubing's black robes revealed a cold glint. To dare humiliate his omniscient sect like this, just who was so daring? But when he turned his head and saw Chu Xiao coming over with a group of people, Yan Lubing and Yi Tianxia beside him had their expressions change. Why was Chu Xiao here? Yan Lubing frowned and said, "Chu Xiao, if I remember correctly, the extreme north's Drifts Now city seems to have enmity with you too. Could it be that you still want to repay enmity with kindness and save the extreme north's Drifts Now city? When did you, Chu Xiao, become so kind?" Looking at the people of the omniscient sect, Chu Xiao's face did not have the slightest expression. He just said indifferently, "Whether I have good intentions or bad intentions, I don't need you guys to guess. Now, the extreme north's Drifts Now city has already submitted to my subduing martial hall. You guys can get lost." Chapter 786. When facing the people from the evil extreme sect, Chu Xiao's attitude could only be described as arrogant. With Chu Xiao's current identity and status, he could already talk to the 9 divine magispriests of the moon-worshipping cult as equals. Chu Xiao really did not take the evil extreme sect, which existed by licking the moon-worshipping cult's boots. Moreover, the evil extreme sect had betrayed the evil extreme sect in the past. Most of the sects of the Hidden Devil clan hated the evil extreme sect to the core, so Chu Xiao did not need to be polite to him. Yan Liubing's expression instantly darkened to the extreme. He snorted coldly and said, Chu Xiao, you really don't know what's good for you. Considering that we are both of the devil path, my evil extreme sect has never made things difficult for you when you established the martial suppression hall and established a foothold in the northern Yen. Now, it's just a personal grudge between my evil extreme sect and the northern fluttering snow city, but you want to interfere. What right do you have? Chu Xiao smiled, but his expression suddenly turned cold. What right do you have? Just based on the current situation, you don't even have the right to talk about conditions and rules with me. If you want to talk to me, first call out your evil extreme sect's leader. You are not qualified. Although Chu Xiao's words were extremely arrogant, in reality, Chu Xiao really did have the right to be so arrogant. And Yan Liubing also knew about this. Otherwise, as a dignified martial arts master and the leader of the demon-worshipping hall, he was also a prominent figure in the evil extreme sect. If it were anyone else pointing at his nose and telling him to scram, he would probably have long used him as food and offered him to the fiend god. In the end, he was scolded by Chu Xiao to scram. But now, Yan Liubing first tried to reason with Chu Xiao. One could imagine that even in Yan Liubing's heart, he unconsciously put his position below Chu Xiao. But after being rebuked by Chu Xiao twice in a row, even if Yan Liubing's temper was better, he could not help it. The evil black gas around him corroded the ground under his feet, turning the white snow into black poisonous snow. The black robe was filled with black mist, and it even condensed into the shadow of a demon god, hovering behind him. Chu Xiao's eyes narrowed. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Yan Liubing and directly prepared to make a move. Actually, if it were anyone else, Chu Xiao would have been more reasonable. However, there was no need for him to do so against the extreme evil sect. Chu Xiao was from the Yinma clan. As the traitor of the Kunlun devil cult, the evil extreme sect was hated by many martial artists of the Yinma clan. They were even more hated than the moon-worshipping cult. The identities of the two sides could already be seen. It was impossible for the two to speak calmly. The sooner they fought, the sooner they could settle things. But just as Chu Xiao was about to make a move, Lu Fengxian suddenly stepped forward and pulled Chu Xiao back. She said in a low voice, Brother Chu, at your current position, if you still have to trouble yourself to personally deal with some small characters, it's a little too degrading. Leave this one to me. Lu Fengxian walked out with halberd in hand and stood in front of Chu Xiao. For Chu Xiao, he never cared about face when doing things. A lion would use its full strength to capture a rabbit. If Chu Xiao really wanted to kill someone, he did not care whether the other party was male or female, or status, not to mention strength or strength. At this time, Lu Fengxian stood up not only to fight for Chu Xiao's face, but most importantly, he felt that he owed Chu Xiao too much. Although he helped when Chu Xiao was besieged the first time, with Lu Fengxian's strength at that time, it could only be said to be icing on the cake. Last time, when Chu Xiao saved him, it was really charcoal in snowy weather. LV Fengxian was the kind of person who would return the favor when others treated him well. Now that Chu Xiao had done his best, Lu Fengxian did not even know how to return the favor. He could only help Chu Xiao as much as he could. Chu Xiao knew Lu Fengxian's intentions. Moreover, he wanted to see how strong Lu Fengxian had become after stepping into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. Therefore, Chu Xiao did not decline. He nodded and said, All right, Brother Lu, you do it. When Yan Liubing saw that Chu Xiao and Lu Fengxian were actually giving way and treating him like a commodity, he could not help but yell angrily, You guys are courting death. Facing Chu Xiao, who had once killed a true fire spirit refinement cultivator, Yan Liubing was indeed a little uneasy. However, facing Lu Fengxian, who had just stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, Yan Liubing felt that the other party was courting death. Among the young talents of this generation, there were no martial Dao Grandmasters who dared to underestimate Chu Xiao, Zhang Qingzhen, and Zhong Xian when they were at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage. The remaining second echelon were Fang Qi Shao, Ying Bailu, Lu Fengxian, and the others. Although their strength was also extraordinary, in the hearts of most people in the pugilistic world, they were inferior to Chu Xiao and the others. Yan Liubing had no confidence against Chu Xiao, but against Lu Fengxian, who had just stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, how could he not be confident? Lu Fengxian did not say anything and walked out with halberd in her hand. Actually, Lu Fengxian was a very cultured person. For example, Chu Xiao sometimes had a sharp tongue and would make the other party fly into a rage. However, when did one ever see Lu Fengxian cursing when fighting someone? Even when Yan Fian and the Yu Nu Gong tricked him, LV Fengxian did not say anything overboard. Furthermore, unlike Li Feilian, who did not speak much and attacked immediately, Lu Fengxian stood out and first cupped her fists at Yan Lubing. After Yan Lubing snorted coldly, Lu Fengxian directly smashed down with her halberd. With a bang, a violent aura suddenly erupted, shaking heaven and earth and shattering mountains and rivers. The moment Lu Fengxian smashed down with her halberd, Yan Liubing's expression also changed. There was no change in technique, only power. It could be said to be the ultimate power, a power that made people feel despair. Yan Lubing formed a seal with both hands, and the black demon qi around him surged, transforming into a demon god with 2 horns on its head. It walked out of the black fog and let out an ear-piercing roar, facing Lu Fengxian's halberd. The evil extreme sex cultivation method mainly emphasized the word evil. Yi Tianxia cultivated the cultivation method of a ferocious beast with a human body, which was already evil enough. Yan Lubing of the Demon Sacrifice Hall, on the other hand, used the demon god skeleton that had been passed down from ancient times to worship day and night, obtaining a trace of the demon god's true intent, and then using his own gang energy to imitate it, which was also very evil. However, under Lu Fengxian's halberd, the demon god with 2 horns on its head was directly smashed into pieces, exploding into a pile of black fog. Yan Liubing's expression suddenly changed, and the black demon qi transformed into a pair of wings behind him. A black shadow flashed, and he instantly retreated hundreds of feet away. Lu Fengxian's halberd smashed onto the place where Yan Lubing was previously standing without any hesitation. Instantly, a huge crater that was hundreds of feet wide appeared on the ground. The ground trembled, and huge cracks continuously extended. Lu Fengxian's halberd strike was actually like an earth dragon turning over its body, and it was comparable to the might of the heavens and earth. Holding the halberd forward, the demon god's unparalleled halberd was unleashed to the extreme by Lu Fengxian, and it continued smashing towards Yan Lubing with an incomparably violent aura. Yan Lubing roared angrily, and countless strange demon gods with wings condensed in the black fog, charging towards Lu Fengxian, but they were all completely smashed by the demon god's unparalleled halberd. In reality, the devil gods worshipped by the demon sacrifice hall weren't true devil gods. Some were only powerful ancient vicious beasts, but they carried a lot of evil power, which led to them being worshipped by those ignorant people of the archaic era. In all these years, the evil extreme sect had found many such things, so the demon sacrifice hall worshipped more than one demon god. It was a pity that these things were extremely weak in front of Lu Fengxian, and they could not even block a single strike of his halberd. Chu Xiu's face was expressionless, and he was not worried about Lu Fengxian in the slightest. Actually, Lu Fengxian's strength was also looked down upon by many people of the pugilistic world. Compared to Chu Xiu, who had made enemies everywhere, Lu Fengxian really did not have any enemies in the pugilistic world that he would not rest until he was dead. Therefore, this also caused Lu Fengxian to rarely use his full strength, and everyone had indeed somewhat underestimated his strength. Especially now that Yan Lubing was still using this method of stellar energy to clash head-on with Lu Fengxian. This was practically seeking death in Chu Xiu's view. Whose martial arts had Lu Fengxian inherited? The reincarnated demon god, Lu Wenhou. That was a powerful existence that could make true demon gods bow their heads in ancient times, and these inanimate things formed from stellar energy wanted to harm Lu Fengxian. It was simply wishful thinking. Seeing that his attacks had all turned into nothingness in front of Lu Fengxian, and that he was even being forced back step by step, Yan Lubing roared angrily. His black robes fluttered, and as demonic qi roared, his appearance was finally revealed to everyone. Now, Chu Xiu finally knew why Yan Lubing always hid his body in the black robes. It was because Yan Lubing had already completely lost his human appearance. The left side of Yan Liubing's face was already pitch black, and there were even blood-colored demonic markings surging on it. And on the right side of his face, sinister-looking thick blood vessels bulged, and he simply did not look human at all. It was unknown if there was a problem with the cultivation method he cultivated, or if the cultivation method of the demon sacrifice hall was simply so strange. Boundless demonic qi gathered in Yan Liubing's left hand, but his left hand instantly became incomparably pale, as if all the blood had been sucked out. He stretched out a hand, and instantly, demonic clouds gathered. A huge hand completely condensed from demonic qi seemed to cover the sky, and it suddenly came crashing down, grabbing towards Lu Fengxian's head. When Yan Lubing was young, he was daring and crazy. He had once accidentally obtained a strange hand bone that did not seem to belong to a human, and it contained extremely great power. He had actually transplanted it into his left arm, and even though he had obtained this demon god's hand that could be said to be powerful, it had also completely destroyed his appearance, and that was how the demonic markings on the left side of his face had appeared. But the might of this hand was extremely great. Once it was used, it would even devour his vital energy, so normally, unless he was fighting with his life on the line, Yan Lubing almost didn't use it, and it could be imagined to what extent he had been forced to buy Lu Fengxian. But facing this attack, Lu Fengxian's expression did not change in the slightest. The halberd in his hand suddenly became a peerless divine weapon, flickering with a violent and ferocious might. With a smash of the halberd, the demon god's hand shattered with a bang, and Yan Liubing's entire body was completely sent flying by this halberd. Chapter 787. Lu Fengxian's strength had even somewhat exceeded Chu Xiu's expectations. Although Yan Lubing was not well known in the Jianghu, he was indeed a character. He dared to use demonic arts to refine himself into that appearance that was neither human nor ghost. Ordinary people really could not do such a thing. Especially his last devil's hand, its power was already considered extremely strong, but it was still smashed away by Lu Fengxian's halberd. Once Lu Fengxian, who usually looked peaceful, made a move, its power was simply extremely violent. Yan Lubing was smashed by Lu Fengxian's halberd and flew dozens of feet away. He instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. The demonic aura around him dissipated, and his face was pale and horrified. Go! Yan Lubing spat out a word without saying anything else. He turned around and retreated with the people of Evil Pole sect. He could be considered to be sensible. He could not even defeat Lu Fengxian, let alone Chu Xiu. Most importantly, he could see a look of indifference on Chu Xiu's face, without the slightest scruple or care. If he really stubbornly resisted to the end, it was estimated that Chu Xiu would really kill him. At this time, even the people of Zhanwu Hall under Chu Xiu were looking at Lu Fengxian with shock. They all knew that Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian were good friends. Even this time, Chu Xiu specially went to Eastern Qi to save Lu Fengxian. This matter had long been spread throughout the Jianghu because of the wind-sweeping building. Previously, they were still puzzled in their hearts. Official Chu was really loyal to his friends, but the problem was that the price he paid was a little too much. But now that they saw Lu Fengxian's strength, their doubts had disappeared. Even from the most utilitarian point of view, it was worth it to be able to make friends with this kind of strength. At this moment, Bai Xiaotian of the Northern Drifts Now City led a group of disciples and walked out. He bowed to Chu Xiu, many thanks to official Chu for lending a helping hand. Chu Xiu shook his head. I'm not helping you. I have no reason to help your Drifts Now City for no reason. I'm just protecting what belongs to me. Bai Wuji has already sold the Drifting Snow City to me. How can I not protect my own property? Bai Xiaotian's face revealed a trace of astonishment. Chu Xiu's gaze was also fixed on Bai Xiaotian. Right now, within the Drifts Now City of the extreme north, this man was the strongest. Even if he were to sit on the seat of the city lord, it would only be fitting for him to do so. Therefore, Chu Xiu wanted to see if he was willing to submit to him. If Bai Xiaotian really had other intentions, Chu Xiu didn't mind finishing him off on the spot. In any case, he only needed an obedient dog and not a disloyal wolf. Fortunately, Bai Xiaotian really didn't have any ambitions. Even when the Drifts Now City was in a difficult situation, Bai Xiaotian didn't choose to flee or sit on the seat of the city lord, let alone now. Therefore, Bai Xiaotian was only slightly stunned. He then replied, since Wuji has already made his decision, I will naturally submit. From Bai Xiaotian's point of view, it was a good thing that Chu Xiu could take over the Drifts Now City. At the very least, to the Drifts Now City which had enemies on all sides, with Chu Xiu's protection, they would be able to fend off a large number of people with ill intentions. Chu Xiu waved his hand. City Lord Bai, you have made the right choice. Bai Xiaotian shook his head. Official Chu, you are wrong. I don't intend to be the city lord. The seat of the city lord belongs to Wuji. The moment these words came out, even Bai Wuji was extremely shocked. He hurriedly said, Third uncle in the Drifts Now City, you are the strongest. If you don't want to be the city lord, how can I be? Bai Xiaotian shook his head. Wuji, I have never thought about the city lord position. No matter what, it should be yours. Right now, what the Drifts Now city needs isn't strength but stability. Your seniority and reputation are all here while I am just a branch disciple. Although my strength has improved greatly, my prestige is still here. My words might not be as effective as yours. Therefore, the city lord position should still be yours. I will only be responsible for assisting from the side. That should be enough. Bai Wuji still wanted to say something, but when he saw the resolute look in Bai Xiaotian's eyes, he could only nod his head in agreement. Chu Xiao clapped his hands and said, "The problem of your Drifts Now city has been solved. Now, it's time to talk about my Zhenwu Hall's problem." Bai Wuji's character changed very quickly. He cupped his hands respectfully and said, "Official Chu, if you have any orders, just say it." Chu Xiao squinted his eyes and said, "Go and inform the forces that are still related to your Drifts Now city. Tell them to come to the Zhenwu Hall in 5 days. You don't need to know the content of the discussion for the time being. You only need to know that no matter when, your Drifts Now city must unconditionally stand on my side." Chu Xiao looked deeply at Bai Wuji and Bai Xiaotian, and said in a deep voice, "Including me sending you to your death?" Bai Wuji took a deep breath and said, "Yes, sir." After that, Chu Xiao turned and left with his people. When Chu Xiao and the others were gone, Bai Wuji sighed and said, "Third uncle, do you think my decision this time is wrong?" Bai Xiaotian shook his head and said, "Yes, you did a good job. In the entire northern Yan land, no one is more suitable than Chu Xiao to be the most reliable backer." And Chu Xiao is right. Even if Chu Xiao asks us to die now, we can only do as he says. Because if there is no Chu Xiao, I'm afraid we will die faster. At this time, Chu Xiao did not care what Bai Wuji and the others thought. After returning to the Zhenwu Hall, Chu Xiao immediately gathered people and asked all the sects and families in the Zhenwu Hall to come to the Zhenwu Hall for a discussion. The content of the discussion was not disclosed by Chu Xiao in advance, but most of the martial arts forces who received the news did not think it was a good thing. With Chu Xiao's personality, as long as he could live a peaceful life and not stir up trouble in the northern Yan kingdom, all the major sects would thank the heavens and earth. Of course, from the looks of it now, this kind of thing seemed to be an extravagant hope. 5 days later, in front of Yanjing City's Zhenwu Hall, many people from various forces had arrived. However, there were also some people who were not in a hurry to enter the Zhenwu Hall. Instead, they gathered outside the door, whispering to inquire about the news and discussing something. "Master Sun, do you know what official Chu is going to do this time?" "Who knows? The war between the righteous and demonic factions has just ended. There should be nothing big, right?" Someone sneered and said, "Naive. If it was someone else, it might not be a big deal. But don't you know the character of official Chu? As soon as the war between the righteous and demonic factions ended, he appeared in the Yunu Palace and killed Palace Master Lin of the Yunu Palace. In the end, he also made a lot of noise. For such a person, you tell me that he summoned us this time just to chat. Do you believe this?" As soon as this remark came out, everyone present was suddenly speechless. If it was someone else they might be able to analyze it, but for Chu Xiao, they really could not see through him. "By the way, I heard that Shen Feiying of the Giant Spirit Gang is very close to Chu Xiao. Why don't we find Shen Feiying to inquire about it?" The previous person sneered again and said, "Don't waste your energy. Even if Shen Feiying knows, he will not tell you. The Giant Spirit Gang is not the previous Giant Spirit Gang now. It is just a puppet of the Zhenwu Hall. And that Shen Feiying was pushed to the position by Chu Xiao. He is simply a loyal dog of Chu Xiao. If Chu Xiao does not let him say it, do you think he will dare to say it?" Everyone present was debating. Of course, most of it was useless. Even they themselves did not realize that Chu Xiao had grown to a level that made them tremble. As long as anything related to Chu Xiao was involved, they could only be trampled upon. Just as their discussion became more lively, the door of the Zhenwu Hall was pushed open. Chu Xiao walked out and said, "Since everyone is here, why wait here bitterly? Everyone, please go in and take a seat." Seeing that Chu Xiao had personally invited them, everyone present could only nod and follow Chu Xiao into the Zhenwu Hall. At this time, Sun Chongli, the leader of the Double Moon sect, saw the green sky falcon tied at the entrance of the Zhenwu Hall. He could not help but be amazed and said, "It turns out to be the young of the ancient ferocious beast, the green sky falcon. This thing is rare. I didn't expect a green sky falcon to still be alive." The green sky falcon can fly for more than 10 miles with a flap of its wings. Its body is abnormally strong. Because of this, its meat is also abnormally delicious. It is said that eating it can even enhance one's speed. Chu Xiu looked back and said, "Leader Sun actually recognizes the young of the green sky falcon? Could it be that Leader Sun has studied ferocious beasts before?" Sun Chongli smiled a little embarrassedly and said, "Official Chu, please don't laugh at me. Actually, I don't study ferocious beasts, but I like to study some strange food." The description of the green sky falcon is from some ancient books about delicacies. Chu Xiu nodded his head in understanding and said, "Oh, I see. Since it is an ancient book, it must be correct. Tanya, Yen Bugue, come over and slaughter this beast. Bring it to the kitchen and let them braise it or steam it. Decide for yourself. Make a dozen dishes and entertain all the leaders." Sun Chongli and the others were all stunned. Especially Sun Chongli. He quickly said, "Official Chu, don't take it seriously. I was just saying. This green sky falcon is even stronger than a martial Dao master when it matures. Isn't it a pity to just kill it and eat its meat?" Chu Xiu glanced at the green sky falcon and said indifferently, "When this thing matures, I'm afraid I would have nurtured more than a dozen martial Dao masters. Moreover, I kept this thing at my doorstep with the intention of letting it guard the house. In the end, this beast eats and drinks my food, but all day long it looks like it's dissatisfied. It's not even as good as a guard dog. What's the point of keeping it? I can use it to entertain all of you." Chu Xiu's words seemed to have a hidden meaning, causing some of the sect masters and family heads present to have a strange feeling. Chapter 788. The meat of the green sky falcon was very fragrant and delicious. It was definitely a delicacy in the world. Moreover, this kind of thing could only be found by chance. After all, ordinary people would not be as extravagant as Chu Xiu, who actually used a ferocious beast as a dish. This made the group of sect masters and family heads eat heartily. At the same time, they secretly thought that Chu Xiu was wasting natural resources. Chu Xiu sat in the main seat and watched quietly as everyone finished eating. Then he asked, "Everyone, how is the taste?" Sun Chongli was the first to stand up. He sighed and said, "It is indeed the meat of the ancient ferocious beast, the green sky falcon. It's delicious beyond description. It is even more delicious than what is described in the ancient books. This time, we are all thanks to official Chu. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would not be able to eat such a precious treasure in this life." Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Everyone, I still remember when the Zhenwu Hall was just established. I'm afraid everyone thought that I, Chu Xiu, was the kind of devil who killed innocent people. Everyone was very resistant." Although they had eaten Chu Xiu's food, when they heard this, everyone curled their lips at the same time. "You, Chu Xiu, are still a demon who willfully slaughters the innocent. Moreover, they are still very resistant to it. However, the result of resistance was the destruction of their families. Therefore they had no choice but to give in." Chu Xiu did not seem to see the helpless expression of the people present. He continued, "Actually, I am a very reasonable person. The biggest advantage of me, Chu Xiu, is that I will never mistreat my own people. In fact, is the so-called distinction between righteous and demonic in Jianghu really so serious? Everyone, you can speak with your conscience. In the end, is your own interests more important, or the so-called distinction between righteous and demonic?" Glancing at everyone present, Chu Xiu snickered and said, "From what I see, everyone has chosen the latter. If someone had chosen the former, then probably none of you would have appeared here. Instead, you would be lying in ambush outside Yanjing City, wanting to assassinate a demon like me at any time to rid the world of evil." Everyone present laughed a few times. No one spoke. In fact, this was indeed the case. Those who had enmity with the demonic path were the righteous sections. What was a righteous sect? At the very least, you have to become a reputable family first before you can be called a righteous faction. Small sects and aristocratic families like them, who mingled in the Jianghu, had always been fence-sitters. They actually didn't care much about the so-called righteous and evil paths. Chu Xiu slammed the table fiercely, scaring everyone. In a very formal tone he said, "After saying so much, I can only summarize it in one sentence. If you follow me, Chu Xiao, it can't be said that you will eat and drink well every day, but at least there will be benefits. I will not forget you all. Now, there is a good thing waiting for you all." When everyone present heard Chu Xiao's words, their hearts tightened. They wouldn't be so naive to think that Chu Xiao really meant what he said. Sun Chongli asked cautiously, "May I ask what the good thing official Chu is talking about is?" Chu Xiao waved his hand and said, "Everyone knows who I am. I once found many ancient books about the Kunlun devil cult and the hidden devil clan, and they recorded some very interesting things. In the past, some of the halls of the Kunlun devil cult placed their treasures in the entire Jianghu. Coincidentally, there are 2 places near the Temple of Great Light. However, everyone knows that the monks of the Temple of Great Light are rather nosy. If I were to recklessly dig for treasures, I'm afraid I'll come into conflict with those monks, so I'll have to rely on you all. When the time comes, everyone can temporarily move your families to somewhere near the Temple of Great Light and start digging for treasures openly. I'll give you a rough location. As long as you dig out the ruins, you can split 70% among yourselves. I only want 30%. Hearing this, the crowd instantly went into an uproar, and they immediately started discussing it animatedly. However, not a single person dared to agree because this matter was truly too crazy. Everyone knew that the wilderness in the far north was the territory of the Temple of Great Light, but now Chu Xiao wanted them to move there. This was practically challenging the authority of the Temple of Great Light. More importantly, they wanted to dig for treasures around the Temple of Great Light. This was practically infuriating the Temple of Great Light. Even if it were them, they wouldn't be able to accept a group of strangers digging around in front of their homes, much less the Temple of Great Light. Therefore, everyone present immediately said, "Official Chu, it's not that we don't want to help, but in this matter, we really can't do anything." "Yeah, that's the Temple of Great Light. How would we dare to do this? Also, moving an entire family is a big project. Even if it's temporary, it'll still consume a lot of things." Everyone present spoke one after another. Almost all of them were against it. Not a single person was in favor of it. Chu Xiao looked at everyone silently and did not say a word. The originally noisy hall became strangely silent. Sensing that the atmosphere wasn't right, everyone present immediately went silent and did not dare to say anything else. When the hall was completely silent, Chu Xiao then said coldly, "Was the green sky falcon's meat delicious?" Chu Xiao's words were very light, but the coldness instantly penetrated their hearts, causing them to tremble violently and almost spit out the green sky falcon's meat. Only now did they understand what Chu Xiao meant by killing the green sky falcon without saying anything. "You said that the green sky falcon's meat was delicious, so I treated you to a meal from a ferocious beast. It was generous enough and generous enough. Now that I have something to ask of you, you're making excuses. This is against the rules." Chu Xiao was furious because the consequences would be severe. Chu Xiao had even killed the ferocious beast guarding the door. If they still refused, there was no need to say what would await them. None of the patriarchs and sect masters present were fools. They had already guessed Chu Xiao's intentions. Therefore, they wanted to cry but had no tears. If they knew this would happen, they would not have eaten that plate of meat. Looking at everyone present, Chu Xiao knocked on the table and said calmly, "Everyone, I know what you're worried about. You're just worried about the Temple of Great Light. However, you must also remember that the law does not punish the masses. So what if you've angered the Temple of Great Light? Can the Temple of Great Light kill all of you? The Temple of Great Light won't even suppress you in the dark because you have too many people." Everyone present thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. Although there were times when the Temple of Great Light killed people because of personal grudges, such cases were rare. The clans and sects, big and small, added up to dozens of forces. They were not worried that the Temple of Great Light would kill them all. Otherwise, the other party would not be the Temple of Great Light but the Kunlun devil cult. However, even if their lives were not in danger, being hated by the Temple of Great Light was not something to be proud of. Therefore, everyone present wanted to evade. However, at this moment, Chu Xiao said in a low voice, "Everyone, please think carefully before you speak. The monks of the Temple of Great Light are kind and can't bear to kill the innocent, but I, Chu Xiao, have never been a generous person. He ate my food and drank my wine, but in the end, he doesn't do anything for me. What's the use of such a person? Everyone present felt a chill in their hearts. Only then did they remember that Chu Xiu seemed to have said the same thing to the green sky falcon at the door. He had said it to the green sky falcon, but it was also said to them. The scene was silent. No one resisted, and no one agreed. It was a stalemate. At this moment, a middle-aged warrior with a mustache stood up and said with a smile, "Since Official Chu has said so, if I refuse, it would be disrespectful to Official Chu. The Feng family agrees to this. I will go back and gather the disciples to move to the Temple of Great Light." After saying that, the Feng family master turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu said calmly, "Feng family master, looking at you, I'm afraid you're not going to move to the Temple of Great Light, but to report to the Temple of Great Light?" The Feng family master turned around and smiled awkwardly. "How is that possible? Official Chu, you've misunderstood." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Did I misunderstand, or do you think I'm an idiot?" "Feng family master, your son has become a disciple of the Temple of Great Light. His seniority is the same as Zhong Xian's, and he is even Zhong Xian's junior brother. You've been bragging about this for a long time. Now that you're prepared to stand on my side, fine. Write a letter and ask your son to return to normal life. I will personally send someone to deliver it to the Temple of Great Light. Do you dare?" The Feng family master's expression changed. He snorted and said, "Official Chu, do you really want to force us into a dead end? If you have a grudge against the Temple of Great Light, that's your own business. Why must you drag us down with you? We can't comply with your actions." The words of the Feng family's patriarch echoed the thoughts of many people present. They could not afford to offend the Temple of Great Light, and neither could Chu Xiu. Therefore, it was better for them to watch from the sidelines. Chu Xiu stared at the Feng family master for a moment, then finally shook his head and said, "Feng family master, you've disappointed me. I've looked into the Feng family's information. Your Feng family's ancestor was a famous bandit in the martial world. He dominated the 7 counties of northern Yan and came and went like the wind. But your Feng family's ancestor died at the hands of the Temple of Great Light's rising talent, becoming the other party's battle record to enter the Longhu leaderboard. You should have a deep grudge against the Temple of Great Light, but now you're standing on the Temple of Great Light's side. Your son hasn't even gotten married yet, but you've already sent him to the Temple of Great Light to be a monk. He won't have the chance to have any descendants in this lifetime, and he won't even be able to touch a woman. What's the point of living for someone like you who has let down your ancestors and future generations? What use do I have for you?" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu lightly moved his finger, and everyone saw the Feng clan's patriarch's entire body start to twitch. Large amounts of blood seeped out from his body and transformed into a bloody mist that drifted in the air. In practically an instant, the Feng clan's patriarch's entire body's vital energy and blood had been sucked dry, and he'd become a dried corpse. Chapter 789. A life had been lost in the blink of an eye. Everyone present seemed to be scared out of their wits, and not a single person spoke. With a wave of his hand, Chu Xiu blew away the blood mist in front of him with his righteous qi. He calmly said, "Shen Feiying." Shen Feiying, who was not sitting in the middle of the crowd, but was standing behind Chu Xiu, immediately stood up and said, "Here. I'll leave the Feng family to you. Within 3 days, I want this name to disappear from the northern Yan underworld." Shen Feiying respectfully bowed and said, "Yes, I will obey." Shen Feiying's attitude was very obedient, and he was not forced at all. Since the day he betrayed Feng Datong, there was no turning back for him. His life, his everything, was tied to Chu Xiu. Even if Chu Xiu were to ask him to splash feces at the entrance of the Temple of Great Light, Shen Feiying would do so with tears in his eyes, much less exterminate a small aristocratic family. He would even have to beg Chu Xiu to take care of his family. The crowd shuddered again, and their eyes were filled with terror. It was only now that they understood a principle. If they angered the Great Light Temple, they might not die, but if they angered Chu Xiu, they would lose their lives now. With Chu Xiu's arrogant attitude, perhaps there would be people who would stand up for justice and kill the evil spirit in the end, but most of them would probably not live to see that day. At this time, standing in the back hall, Lu Fengxian saw the scene in the hall through the window. He only frowned slightly and did not say much. He had never agreed with the way Chu Xiu did things, but he would never advise Chu Xiu. It was just like how others could not persuade Lu Fengxian. Even if Lu Fengxian did not agree with this matter, as long as you became his friend, Lu Fengxian would stand by your side no matter what you did. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Lu Fengxian's behavior was simply not distinguishing between right and wrong, but for Lu Fengxian, he could not disappoint the world, but as long as he did not disappoint his friend, that was enough. Shui Wuxiang, who was standing behind Lu Fengxian, quite agreed with Chu Xiu's approach. The method of killing for the sake of killing is a bit too extreme, but Chu Xiu was able to find a balance. The world can only see that he is cruel and bloodthirsty, but in reality, killing is a means to him. Killing one person can intimidate so many people. It's worth it. Speaking of this, Shui Wuxiang was also a little sad. In the past, LV Wenho did not understand this point, and killed too much, which was why he ended up like this. For LV Wenho, although he killed to solve problems, he was different from Chu Xiu. LV Wenho's method of solving problems was only to kill. In the end, he killed all enemies of the world, but he was killed instead. If LV Wenho had listened to his advice back then, and not be so extreme in his actions, the legend of the demon LV Wenho might not be the legend of the demon LV Wenho, but the overlord LV Wenho. Lu Fengxian turned around and asked, "You also think that Brother Chu is right?" Shui Wuxiang nodded and said, "Of course he is. If he did not use such a method, and recklessly attack the Great Light Temple, it would be equivalent to seeking death." Lu Fengxian suddenly sighed and said, "Actually, you should join Brother Chu. Following me is too much of a waste of your abilities." If an ordinary person said something like this, it would definitely be a criticism. However, when Lu Fengxian said it, it was extremely sincere. Shui Wuxiang and the others also knew this, so they directly said, "My lord, we are willing to recognize you as our lord because you have the inheritance of the old lord, so you will always be our lord. No matter how outstanding Chu Xiu is, he is still an outsider. My lord, please do not mention such things in the future." Lu Fengxian nodded. In fact, he was also a little touched. In fact, when he took in these 4 people, Lu Fengxian was a little resistant. He was not used to having so many people by his side. However, after getting along with them, he realized that these 4 people really did not have any selfish intentions towards him. Regardless of whether he wanted to hear what they said or not, they were at least for his own good. That was why Shui Wuxiang and the others said it. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings had been completely terrified by Chu Xiu's ruthless methods. No one doubted that if they continued to resist or tried to play tricks like the Feng clan's patriarch had, then they would probably become dried corpses on the ground. At this time, Bai Wuji walked in from the inner hall, bowed respectfully to Chu Xiu, and said in a deep voice, "The northern fluttering snow city is willing to follow official Chu, and be at official Chu's beck and call." This time, everyone present was really shocked. Who would have thought that the northern fluttering snow city, a force that had some enmity with Chu Xiu in the early years, would actually choose to submit to Chu Xiu? In fact, the news of Bai Hantian's death was already known by most people. After all, Bai Hantian was considered a character in the entire northern Yen. But the matter of Chu Xiu saving the northern fluttering snow city was not known to most people. Therefore, in the eyes of most people, Bai Wuji, as the heir of the northern fluttering snow city, was the city lord, and could also represent the position of the northern fluttering snow city. Bai Xiaotian was right. Although he was the martial Dao grandmaster, and he was also the one who turned the tide and saved the northern fluttering snow city, his reputation was really not as good as Bai Wuji's. At least outside, everyone recognized Bai Wuji as the heir of the northern fluttering snow city, not Bai Xiaotian. At this time, Bai Wuji's appearance at this time was like the straw that broke the camel's back, letting them know what to choose. The crowd looked at each other, immediately bowed, and said in a deep voice, "We are also willing to follow official Chu's beck and call." Although Bai Hantian was dead, and the northern fluttering snow city had become a joke, and its strength was extremely weak. But no matter how weak the northern fluttering snow city was, the other party was still one of the overlords of the northern land. The tiger died, the tiger's prestige still existed, and Bai Wuji's weight was not low. He took the lead to submit. How could the others dare to refuse? Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Everyone in the future, you will know that you have made a wise choice." A smile that was uglier than crying appeared on the faces of everyone present. They did not know whether it was wise or not, but they knew that if they did not choose this now, they might not be able to leave the Zhenwu Hall. After everyone left, Bai Wuji hesitated and said, "Sir, are you really going to make a move on the Great Light Temple?" The Northern Yen martial arts world could not be compared with the Eastern Qi martial arts world. Even in terms of the number of top sects, the Northern Yen was not even comparable to the Western Chu. The reason why the Eastern Qi martial arts world was strong was that the Eastern Qi was located in the Central Plains. It was a vast land with abundant resources, so most of the sects with a long history were in the Eastern Qi. And the reason why the Western Chu martial arts world was strong was that the Western Chu imperial court did not do anything, causing the people of the Western Chu land to be fierce and strong. Therefore, among the martial arts world forces in these three places, it seemed that the Northern Yen was the easiest to manage. But in fact, it was not because the Northern Yen had the Great Light Temple. Taoism was peaceful and inactive. In addition to the Chunyang Dao sect, the real martial arts sect was also in the Eastern Qi territory. But even the Chunyang Dao sect rarely intervened in the affairs of the imperial court. But the Great Light Temple was different. Any existence that they did not like, the Great Light Temple would intervene. With such an overlord-level force in the Northern Yen, the entire Northern Yen martial arts world felt great pressure. Now, Chu Xiu actually wanted to compete with such an existence. In Bai Wuji's view, it was a bit dangerous. It was more appropriate to let the entire Yinma clan behind Chu Xiu come. "Do you regret it?" Chu Xiu asked. Bai Wuji shook his head and said, "Of course not, but now that I have become your subordinate, I should naturally help you solve your problems. I don't understand your plan, so I'm afraid it won't be good for me to take action." Chu Xiu casually waved his hand and said, "We don't have to do anything this time, just watch. I also know the strength of the Great Light Temple, so of course, I won't be so stupid as to fight the Great Light Temple to the end. To put it bluntly, my plan is a bit shameful. It is used to discuss the Great Light Temple. With so many people digging around in the Great Light Temple's territory, if the Great Light Temple has the guts, then they can kill. If they don't, then they can only endure." At this point, Chu Xiu sneered and said, "This time, I want to see if those monks are really merciful or fake." As soon as Chu Xiu said this, Bai Wuji immediately understood what was going on. It had to be said that this move of Chu Xiu was indeed a bit sinister, but it was only useful against the Great Light Temple. If it were anyone else, they would directly start a massacre and kill a few families, and the rest would naturally fall apart. Even if Chu Xiu threatened them, it would be useless. They would die either way. However, it was different now. Retreating was death, but advancing was not necessarily the same. At this time, in the outside world, whether it was the family heads who had accepted their fate or those who had secretly sent messages to the Great Light Temple, everyone had already made some simple preparations and temporarily moved their families to the wild lands of the far north. It was not easy to drag along one's family, so it took more than 10 days before all the forces were ready to depart. The cold lands of the far north where the Great Light Temple was located had a very harsh environment. If it was said that the extreme north where the Drifts Now city was located was only a little colder, but there were still some living creatures living there. But the bitter cold of the extreme north was a true land of death, with no signs of life in a radius of several hundred miles. However, this was very useful for the warriors of the Great Light Temple. For the new disciples of the Great Light Temple, staying away from the bustling city was beneficial to their cultivation. It could allow the disciples to not be contaminated by the outside world when they were young. When these disciples came of age, they could also use this bitter cold environment to comprehend and cultivate their character. However, recently, the warriors of the Great Light Temple felt that something was not right. Dozens of Northern Yen forces came to set up camp around the Great Light Temple, and they even built simple pavilions. Although the practicality could not be compared to their homes, it was not a problem for them to stay here temporarily. After discovering this, the Great Light Temple immediately went to inform the abbot. In the end, the abbot unexpectedly went into seclusion, leaving only Su Yun behind. Of course, everyone was used to it. In the Great Light Temple, Su Yun was almost equivalent to another abbot. Chapter 790. Inside the Great Light Temple, incense was burning brightly, and the entire temple was enveloped in the majestic sound of Buddha. Anyone who heard it could not help but feel a sense of solemnity. However, there were very few Great Light Temple disciples active inside the temple. Most of them were cultivating in seclusion. The moon-worshipping cult war had just ended, and the Great Light Temple was the main participant in this war. Half of the temple's elites had participated in that war. In theory, there was no winner or loser in this war, but the Great Light Temple had suffered some damage. Therefore, the injured disciples were all recovering, while the disciples who had participated in the war but were not injured were cultivating in seclusion. They wanted to digest all the experience they had gained from that war. At that moment, in Su Yun's meditation hall, Su Yun was looking at the situation reported by a disciple. He passed the information to Su Yan, who was sitting in front of him, and said calmly, "Take a look." Su Yan took the information and looked at it, while Su Yun picked up a teacup and brewed some tea. The righteous qi instantly caused the water in the teapot to boil. When it was poured into the teacup, the originally yellow tea leaves turned dark green. They immediately released a rich but pleasant aroma. Su Yun handed Su Yan a cup of tea and said, "This is snow lotus tea from the peak of the Great Snow Mountain. I guarded it for 3 years and only managed to gather a few stalks. After frying it, there are less than 2 tails left." Su Yan took the tea and drank it in one gulp like a cow chewing on a peony. Only then did he frown and say, "Senior, someone is causing trouble. I don't believe those sects and families have the guts to provoke the Great Light Temple." Aside from dealing with those demonic path sects, the Great Light Temple rarely bullied others. However, at the same time, the Great Light Temple's dignity was not to be challenged. Therefore, almost no one dared to provoke the Great Light Temple. In the end, this group of sects and aristocratic families had all appeared around the Temple of Great Light, openly taking root in the territory of the Temple of Great Light. Aside from the fact that they had lost their minds, there was someone behind them causing trouble. Su Yun poured another cup of tea for Su Yan and said, "The aftermath of the moon-worshipping cult incident is still here, and now someone is causing trouble. In troubled times, we must be more cautious. Junior brother, drink slowly. Your mind is in a mess, and that's not good." Among the senior and junior brothers of the Su generation, apart from Su Du, whose strength could not be seen through, Su Yun actually wanted to nurture Su Yan the most. There were too many martial art practitioners in the Great Light Temple, and the seniority was a bit messy. Back then, among the entire Su generation, there were people of all ages, and Su Yan was the most inconspicuous one. Compared to him, he was inferior to Abbot Su Ci and Su Yun, who were older than him. Compared to him, he was not as fast as Su Du, who had made a name for himself. However, such a seemingly mediocre statement was taken seriously by Su Yun, because he cultivated the Furious Diamond Heart Sutra. This technique of the Vajra department could be said to be extremely ferocious and violent. It was a top-notch body-refining technique that could be mastered quickly without affecting its subsequent power. However, it was rather difficult to control the fury of the guardian deity. Su Yan managed to do this. He hid his fury in his heart, just like a martial art practitioner subduing the inner monkey. However, what Su Yan subdued was a furious guardian deity that was not under his control. There were many people in the Great Light Temple who were stronger than Su Yan in terms of martial art talent, but what they lacked was someone like Su Yan who could maintain this clarity of mind at all times. Su Yan thought about it and said, "Even if someone is causing trouble, this group of people is just a motley crew. We don't need to be too flustered. Let Zhong Xian investigate first." After the great battle between the righteous and demonic paths, he has already completely familiarized himself with his own power. It's time for him to come into contact with some matters of the sect. As the successor that the Great Light Temple was grooming, Zhong Xian's strength was sufficient. In fact, among the younger generation, there were almost only a handful who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. However, the problem was that with Zhong Xian's personality, he was still far from becoming someone who could manage the entire Great Light Temple. Hence, now that Zhong Xian was still young, Su Yan also wanted Zhong Xian to get more involved in the affairs of the Jianghu and familiarize himself with them. Su Yun nodded and said, "Then I'll leave this matter to you first. I'll go and find Su Jing to do some divination. The turmoil in the Jianghu is not calm again." After saying that, Su Yun moved his feet and his figure instantly disappeared from the meditation room. Su Yan, who was sitting where he was, shook his head and drank another mouthful of tea. However, this time, he did not swallow it all in one gulp. This allowed him to have a slightly different taste. At this time, around the Great Light Temple, dozens of families had already begun to break ground and build. It looked like they were going to set up camp here. Buddhism was originally a peaceful place, but the positions that these dozens of families had chosen allowed the martial art practitioners of the Great Light Temple to stand at a high place and be able to see them at a glance. There was no need to mention how vexed this was. However, while they were vexed, the dozens of families were even more vexed. This was not something that they wanted to come here, but they were forced to do so. Although Chu Xiao had given them a rough area to dig in their opinion, this matter still seemed somewhat unreliable. However, since they were already here, what else could they do? They could only let their disciples continue digging. However, at this time, a disciple came forward to report that they had dug something up. As soon as this news came out, many of the family heads and sect leaders immediately gathered there and whispered to each other. They had previously suspected that Chu Xiao was deceiving them, but they did not expect that he had really dug something up and brought it here. Furthermore, this was not impossible. After all, the surroundings of the Great Light Temple did not seem safe, but it was coincidentally the safest place. In all these years, who would dare to wander around the Great Light Temple? Only the Kunlun devil cult from 500 years ago would dare to do so. Sun Chongli was the first to rub his hands and said, "Everyone, let's dig and see what good stuff is inside." After all, this is something that the Kunlun devil cult had buried in the past. The good stuff is probably beyond our imagination. As soon as they heard this, everyone immediately sent people to dig. In less than half a day, a small underground palace appeared before their eyes. This underground palace was originally a place where the Blood Demon Hall had hidden some of their resources in the past, so there were not too many dangers and traps. There was only a formation to protect it. Chu Xiao had taught everyone how to break the formation, so it was very easy for them to open this underground palace. Everyone entered the underground palace and looked at the boxes of refined pills, various types of strange metals, and even forged weapons and hidden weapons. They were almost all the hard currency of the martial world, and everyone's eyes were red with envy. Even if the items that the Kunlun devil cult had collected in the past were just ordinary cultivation resources, they would still be extraordinary in the hands of these small families and sections. Even if the dozens of forces were to split 80% of the treasures in this underground palace, they would still make a huge profit. Of course, there were also people who wondered if they should suggest that they take more of the things here. After all, Chu Xiao did not know how many treasures they had found. However, this idea was extinguished as soon as it appeared, because Shen Feiying was among these people. This was the loyal lackey of Chu Xiao. In order to curry favor with Chu Xiao, he did not care about his reputation at all. Previously, when Chu Xiao asked him to destroy the Feng family, he directly led all the elites of the giant spirit gang and even took the lead. It took less than 6 hours to destroy the Feng family. Now, if they had the idea of taking everything for themselves, Shen Feiying would definitely tell on them. Moreover, it was not only Shen Feiying. Who knew what the people present were thinking? If someone agreed on the surface, but secretly told on them, they would not even know how they died. After all, if one family died, there would be one less family to share the benefits. Therefore, everyone suppressed the greed in their hearts and said in unison, "Take out the things first. After distributing them, send official Chu's share to the Zhenwu Hall. After that, we will divide the rest equally." After no one had any doubts, everyone was just about to pull out the things when a disciple of a small family ran over in a panic and said, "Not good. Not good. The people from the Great Light Temple are here to inquire." Everyone present looked at each other and sighed. What was meant to come would eventually come. They did not dare to face Chu Xiao for fear of being killed. Therefore, they could only face the Great Light Temple. Moreover, even if they were very resistant before, after the treasures in the underground palace were discovered, they suddenly realized that their resistance did not seem to be so strong. Something like profit was enough to make many people lose sight of themselves and take risks out of desperation. Although the leaders of the families present thought that they could see themselves clearly, there was still an underground palace that had not been excavated. Even if Chu Xiao asked them to leave now, they would not be willing to leave. "Everyone, let's go and meet the people from the Great Light Temple. However, please do not forget what official Chu ordered." Shen Feiying said sinisterly. He scoffed. Although everyone listened, it did not mean that they would not look down on traitors like Shen Feiying. The leader of the Great Light Temple was Zhongxian. However, Su Yan knew Zhongxian's personality. He naturally would not just throw Zhongxian out like that. Someone must watch over him. Other than Zhongxian and dozens of disciples from the Great Light Temple, there was another person with the Dharma name Ming Jing. He was one of the more outstanding people in the Ming generation of the Great Light Temple. Back when he was cultivating in the Vajra institution, he was a rare powerhouse in the oneness of heaven and man realm. After the great war between the righteous and demonic in the moon-worshipping cult, he took the opportunity to fight with the powerhouses of the moon-worshipping cult and learn something. Therefore, he successfully entered the martial arts master realm. Su Yan was training him with all his might, and even had the intention of making him the next Vajra institution's first seat. At that moment, everyone walked in and greeted him with smiles on their faces. They even had people serve them tea and water. Their attitudes were extremely polite. We did not know that the eminent monks of the Great Light Temple would come. It is our fault for not coming out to welcome you. However, seeing the people present, Mingjing's expression suddenly darkened. He said coldly, "Leaders of the families, shouldn't you give the Great Light Temple an explanation?" Chapter 791. The Great Light Temple's rebuke was within everyone's expectations. In fact, from the moment they chose to do this, they were already prepared. Hearing Mingjing's rebuke, everyone still put on an innocent expression and said, "May I ask what explanation Master Mingjing wants?" "I don't think we've done anything." Mingjing said coldly. "Didn't do anything? Why didn't you stay in your own territory? What's the meaning of coming to the Great Light Temple?" Although these sect leaders and family heads were not very strong, they were all people who had fought in the Jianghu. They might not be good at anything else, but they were good at pretending to be ignorant and arguing. Someone immediately said, "Mingjing, please don't be offended. We really didn't know that the Great Light Temple didn't allow people to come. If we had known, we definitely wouldn't have dared to do this." Mingjing frowned. Why did these words sound so awkward to him? But at this time, he did not care if it was awkward or not. He said directly, "Fine, then all of you will move now." Everyone hurriedly agreed. "No problem. We will let our disciples prepare and all move. We can leave in about 10 days. Mingjing was also experienced in the Jianghu. When dealing with this group of slippery people, she could not believe everything they said. Even though they had agreed quite nicely and were all making solemn vows, Mingjing could guarantee that when she returned 10 days later, this group of people would definitely not even budge a single step from this place. Their attitude was very good, but they were determined not to change. Even a delay could make one feel helpless. So Mingjing said directly, "There's no need to wait for 10 days. You can move now." Everyone present immediately cried out in grievance. "Now? We really can't do that. With so many disciples and a lot of things that need to be moved, there's not even enough time to prepare. Moreover, Master Mingjing, we are around the Great Light Temple, and we can also admire the Buddha's light and comprehend the Buddha's nature. We will absolutely not cause any trouble for you. Could it be that the Great Light Temple will reject us thousands of miles away?" Mingjing was so angry that her eyebrows jumped. How could this group of people be qualified to comprehend the Buddhist nature? At this time, Zhongxian suddenly stood up. The aura around him gathered bit by bit, and he said expressionlessly, "You are lying." Surrounding the Great Light Temple, acting sneakily and harboring malicious intentions, they should be killed. Zhongxian's murderous nature wasn't that strong, but no matter what he did or what he did, he was weird. More accurately, he was very rigid. Whenever he thought of a problem, he would only use the simplest method to solve it. He didn't even know how to beat around the bush. In any case, in Zhongxian's opinion, this group of people were simply lying and plotting against him. With such behavior, it was the simplest to kill them as a warning to others. Feeling the strong aura around Zhongxian, everyone was shocked. Chu Xiu was not here. Even if they went all out, they would not be able to defeat Zhongxian. Although Chu Xiu kept saying that they would definitely be fine and that the people from the Great Light Temple would not dare to kill them, there was always the possibility of accidents happening. For example, Zhongxian was such an accident. Fortunately, Zhongxian did not care about anything, but Mingjing did. This group of people could scare him, but killing him was too much. Moreover, there were so many people here. Even if he were to kill them all, he wouldn't be able to kill them all in a short time. Therefore, he grabbed Zhongxian and hurriedly transmitted his voice. "Zhongxian, Calm down. You can't kill these people. It's easy to kill them, but it will affect the reputation of the Great Light Temple for so many years. Zhongxian still gave face to Mingjing, who was a martial uncle, and did not continue to make a move. Mingjing also breathed a sigh of relief, then coldly snorted and said, "You've all seen it. Zhongxian's temper isn't very good. If you anger him, you know what the consequences are." Everyone present was also a little shocked by Zhongxian's appearance, but they also said helplessly, "Master Mingjing, this bitter and cold land in the extreme north is a good place for the Great Light Temple to cultivate, but for us, it's really a bitter and cold land. If there weren't any special reasons, we wouldn't want to come here. However, there are people who forced us to come here. Once we retreat, we might even lose our lives. Rather than losing our lives somewhere else, it's better to die in the hands of all of you masters. At least it'll be an honorable death. If Master Mingjing wants to kill us, we definitely won't resist." Everyone looked like gangsters, with a roguish attitude of, "If you want to kill us, just kill us, we'll just wait to be captured without putting up a fight." Their words revealed the existence of Chu Xiao, and it was also Chu Xiao who instructed them to do so. Chu Xiao did not mind the Great Light Temple knowing that he was the one behind all this. Anyway, he was not here, so it was up to the Great Light Temple to deal with it. Of course, if the Great Light Temple really had the guts to kill all these people, Chu Xiao would immediately admit defeat and hide underground. Righteous sects also cared about their reputation, and when they did not care about their reputation, that was the most terrifying thing. At this moment, Mingjing was feeling such a pain in the ass. It was not that he had never killed people before, but in this kind of situation, how could he kill? "I hope you don't regret your choice today." Mingjing coldly snorted and directly left with Zhongxian and the others who were unwilling. After they left, Zhongxian said in a voice without any emotion, "Master Mingjing, why didn't you let me do it just now? You should be able to see that although they keep saying that someone forced them, in reality, they did not resist that kind of coercion too much." Mingjing smiled bitterly and said, "What can you do even if you do it? Kill them all?" This group of people almost all came from the area under the jurisdiction of the subduing martial hall, so it's already very clear who the person behind them is. Chu Xiao is ruthless and cunning. This time, he even came up with a vicious plan to target our Great Light Temple. I'm afraid that Chu Xiao can't wait for our Great Light Temple to kill all these people. That way, our Great Light Temple's reputation will really be finished. For so many years, our Great Light Temple has exterminated demons and protected the righteous path, killing all the evil demons and murderers in the world. When have we ever killed the innocent? Although this group of people is not a righteous sect, they are not of the demonic path either. If we kill them all, how will the people of the pugilistic world look at our Great Light Temple? Our 10,000 years of reputation will be destroyed in a day. Zhongxian looked at the slightly agitated Mingjing and said coolly, "They are considered innocent? Who dares to say that there is no sin in these people? Since we want to kill all the evil demons and murderers in the world, why should we care about what other people think and what other people think? The so-called reputation is like the appearance of a person. I have a compassionate Buddha's heart. So what if tens of thousands of people curse me? With a clear mirror in my heart, even if I am in a sea of blood, I will not be stained by dirt. Uncle Master Mingjing, your current state of mind is not worthy of your Dharma name." Mingjing was so infuriated by Zhongxian's words that she almost fainted on the spot. She slapped her head hard and suddenly said, "Zhongxian, have you been hanging out with Chief Monk Shudu recently?" This kind of bickering tone that could infuriate people to death seemed to make sense at first glance. Wasn't this Shudu's style? Although Zhongxian's way of thinking was slightly different from normal people, it was not so infuriating. Zhongxian nodded and said, "Yes, but I feel that what Chief Monk Shudu said is very reasonable. Although his understanding of Buddhism is unconventional, it is still an excellent interpretation." Mingjing slapped her head again and said helplessly, "Don't stay with Shudu for too long in the future. If there's anything, go ask Chief Monk Shuyun or the abbot." Zhongxian was the future heir of the Great Light Temple. Although he seemed unreliable now, with his strength, he would definitely become an ultimate powerhouse that could stir up the Jianghu. As long as he sat in the position of abbot, he could intimidate the evil demons and rascals. At that time, there would naturally be other people to take care of the various problems. However, even so, if Zhongxian was as crazy as Shudu, Would the Great Light Temple still have any face left? After returning to the Great Light Temple, Ming Jing told Su Yan everything that had happened and secretly reported on Zhong Xian. Of course, in his opinion, he was doing this for Zhong Xian's own good. Hearing that the matter involved Chu Xiu, Su Yan felt a headache coming on. This person was not to be trifled with, at least for now. He did not have time to care about the matter between Shudu and Zhong Xian. Su Yan said directly, "Go find out where Chu Xiu is now." This matter was specially instructed by Su Yun, and Su Yan understood Su Yun's intentions. In the Great Light Temple, there were people who could stand their own ground, but it was not enough, far from enough. Su Yan did not have much desire for power. He was already satisfied with being the Vajrayard's first seat, so what he wanted now was the stability of the Great Light Temple itself. At that moment, Chu Xiu was not in Yanjing City, nor did he wander around the bitter cold lands of the far north with those people. He was now in the fluttering snow city, waiting for the people from the Great Light Temple to come knocking. Chu Xiu had never planned to use force to deal with the Great Light Temple. That would only suit Xianglong's intentions. Right now, he had no plans to risk his life for the Northern Yan Imperial Court. If he were to discuss the Great Light Temple a little, he believed that there would definitely be people who would take the initiative to come and talk to him. It was a peaceful place for Buddhism, but the surroundings had turned into a construction site. This was really troublesome. Although Chu Xiu had been to the fluttering snow city before, he had not toured it too much. At that moment, he was bored, so he got by Xiaotian to bring him around the fluttering snow city. The fluttering snow city had a long history, but there was actually nothing much to see. This was because the fluttering snow city was not a sect with an impressive background. In the beginning, the Bai clan of the fluttering snow city was just a small clan that had been ostracized in the Central Plains and had come to the far north to establish a force. After many generations of development and power, they had absorbed many outsiders, which was how the fluttering snow city of today became. Therefore, there was nothing much to see. Just as Chu Xiu was preparing to go back, someone came to report that someone from the Great Light Temple was requesting an audience. After waiting for so long, they're finally here. This group of monks is really patient. Chapter 792. Su Yan followed by Wuji into the fluttering snow city. Looking at Bai Wuji's figure in front of him, Su Yan couldn't help but reveal a strange expression. Honestly speaking, when he first learned that Chu Xiu was actually in the fluttering snow city, and that the fluttering snow city had even sided with Chu Xiu, Su Yan was really surprised. It wasn't that the Great Brilliance Temple was slow in their news, but to the Great Brilliance Temple, the grudges and killings in the northern Yan land were really too boring. It was so boring that the Great Brilliance Temple didn't even want to participate in it. Their eyes were only focused on the situation of the entire Jianghu. Therefore, after the incident at the drifting snow city in the extreme north, the disciples of the Great Brilliance Temple did not even report it. After knowing that Chu Xiu was at the drifting snow city in the extreme north, Su Yan finally understood what had happened during this period of time. After knowing everything that happened in the fluttering snow city, Su Yan also felt a little sad. A major sect that was so close to the Great Brilliance Temple was gone just like that. Although in the eyes of others, the fluttering snow city had weakened, it still existed. But in Su Yan's eyes, from the moment the fluttering snow city sided with that demon, Chu Xiu, they had already abandoned themselves and were no longer the fluttering snow city of the past. Thinking of this, Su Yan couldn't help but sigh. Little friend Bai, in the past, you and my sect's Zhong Xian were both elites on the Longhu leaderboard. Although your fluttering snow city doesn't abhor evil, but all these years, you have stood on the side of the righteous path. But now, you've sided with Chu Xiu, becoming an accomplice of the demonic path. Why do you have to do this? Bai Wuji didn't even turn his head. He only said calmly, when did my fluttering snow city not want to become a righteous sect and live in glory? But when my fluttering snow city was in danger, who cared about my fluttering snow city? It's not that we didn't beg the Great Brilliance Temple, but in the end, we couldn't even enter the door. Of course, this is also what my fluttering snow city deserves. The sins of the previous generation will be repaid by the current generation. But since Buddha isn't willing to help me, why are you complaining that I've joined the demonic path? Su Yan sighed and did not say anything else. This matter could only be said to be a joke of fate. It was not that the Temple of Great Light did not want to help, but that they could not. The disciples were not in the wrong. The Temple of Great Light would not care about such matters. To put it bluntly, what happened in the northern fluttering snow city was a conflict between the forces of the martial arts world. If the Great Light Temple were to intervene in this kind of matter, there would be people begging them for help in the future. At that time, would the Great Light Temple intervene? Hence, such matters couldn't be said out loud and could only turn a blind eye to it. But in the end, the Drift Snow City was pushed towards Chu Xiu's side. When the demonic path did things, they did not seek fame, but only profit. Chu Xiu brought Su Yan into the Great Hall. Chu Xiu directly sat on the seat that belonged to the Drift Snow City Lord of the Northern Drift Snow City as he smiled. Grandmaster Su Yan came from afar. I apologize for not going out to welcome you. I hope Grandmaster won't take offense. Although Chu Xiu said not to take offense, he had no intention of standing up at this moment. Su Yan stared at Chu Xiu and did not get angry. After a while he said in a deep voice, Chu Xiu, what do you mean by this? Other than infuriating my Temple of Great Light by playing those little tricks of yours, it doesn't bring you any benefits. The great battle between the righteous and demonic factions has just ended. Although your hidden devil lineage didn't suffer too much damage, you can't really think that my righteous path of martial arts world doesn't have the strength to fight anymore, right? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, Grandmaster Su Yan, if I say that I was forced to do this, would you believe me? Su Yan was so angry that he laughed instead. I sent people to ask the sect masters and clan heads of those small factions, and they said that they were forced to do so. Now that I've found you here, you also say that you were forced to do so, and that all of you are innocent people. Yet, this matter has become my Temple of Great Light's fault? Chu Xiu stared at Su Yan and said plainly, in Jianghu, one has no choice. There are too many things in this world that cannot be helped. Those sects and families are not as strong as my Zhenwu Hall, so I can force them. I am now attached to the Northern Yan Imperial Court. Although my words carry enormous weight in Zhenwu Hall, I still have to listen to the Imperial Court. So Xianglong forced me, and I could only act. Su Yan frowned and said, this is Xianglong's order? Chu Xiu nodded and directly sold Xianglong out. It is Xianglong's order. This Northern Yan Lord has reached the end of his life. He wants to leave behind a stable Northern Yan for his descendants. Naturally, the Temple of Great Light, a place outside the law, has to be dealt with. Of course, Xianglong did not expect to destroy the Temple of Great Light, but his ultimate goal was to bring the Temple of Great Light under the rule of the Northern Yan. Of course, there is a cause and effect. For so many years, the Temple of Great Light has not done anything to provoke the authority of the Northern Yan Imperial Court in this land of extreme north. This time, Xianglong did not do this for the sake of his descendants, but because your Temple of Great Light has gone too far. Su Yan snorted softly and said, what has my Temple of Great Light done? As long as a disciple of my Temple of Great Light is able to step into Jianghu, they will abide by the precepts and will not cause trouble. Su Yan dared to say this. The Temple of Great Light had strict precepts. The first thing a disciple did upon entering the temple was not to practice martial arts, but to recite Buddhist scriptures and cultivate their character. Then, after familiarizing themselves with the precepts, they would be assigned to one of the 6 major martial academies or the 3 major meditation halls. Chu Xiu sneered and said, is that so? Some time ago, an old monk from your Temple of Great Light's Dharma Court killed General Nan Qianli of Donglin County's Iron Guard just because he cultivated demonic techniques. It seems that your Temple of Great Light really hates my demonic path to the core. When he heard this, Su Yan immediately understood what was going on. He knew about this matter, but that old monk was a disciple of the previous generation of the Temple of Great Light. He was extremely senior, and even Su Yan had to call him martial uncle. What else could he do? Punish him? Moreover, the person was from the Dharma Court. When the Dharma Court's first seat, Su Xing, heard about this matter, he even praised him without restraint, causing Su Yan to feel very helpless. Su Yan was originally prepared to explain himself when the Northern Yan Imperial Court came to question him. In the end, he did not expect Xianglong to be so agitated by this matter that he did not even question him. Instead, he directly prepared to deal with the Temple of Great Light. Su Yan frowned and said, but that Nan Qianli used human lives to cultivate demonic techniques, which is a taboo in the pugilistic world. It's pardonable for the Temple of Great Light to take action. Chu Xiu sneered and said, Master Su Yan, you'd better tell this to Xianglong and not to me. Nan Qianli used human lives to cultivate, but those were Northern Yen prisoners. Moreover, no matter how vicious the demonic techniques he cultivated were, he was first and foremost a member of the Northern Yen Imperial Court. The Northern Yen Imperial Court had the right to kill him, but you didn't. Now you killed him without saying a word, and you even barged into the military camp to kill him. You're impressive and domineering, so you'll naturally have to bear the consequences. Moreover, to put it bluntly, isn't the Temple of Great Light also bullying the weak and fearing the strong when you kill people? Nan Qianli was a lone cultivator. Apart from his status in the imperial court, he had no backing. However, I, Chu Xiao, have also killed many people. Master Su Yan, you're standing right in front of me. Why didn't you take action to eliminate the demons? Su Yan's face immediately showed anger. Even though he had a good temper, he could not stand Chu Xiao's humiliation. Chu Xiao, are you really prepared to fight the Temple of Great Light to the end? Chu Xiao shook his head and said, "Of course not. If I really wanted to make things difficult for the Temple of Great Light, why would I tell the truth so clearly to you, Master Su Yan? Xiang Long is a heartless person, and I'm still a pugilistic world person. Even though I've helped the Northern Yen Imperial Court do so many things, he still doesn't trust me. This time, he deliberately asked me to do it. He wanted me to fight with the Temple of Great Light to the end, and in the end, draw out the clan of the Hidden Devil behind me, causing both of us to fight to the point where both sides suffer. The only one who would benefit from this would be the Northern Yen Imperial Court. So now, I'm only using these little tricks and have not directly attacked the Temple of Great Light. Master Su Yan, you should know very well what this means." Su Yan frowned. Of course he knew, but it was precisely because of this that this matter was difficult to handle. Touching Chu Xiao would be helping the Northern Yen Imperial Court, and it would not benefit the Temple of Great Light. The great battle between the orthodox and demonic factions had just ended, and the moon-worshipping cult was heavily injured. The orthodox sects were all recuperating. If they were to have another great battle with the Hidden Devil faction, not only would the Temple of Great Light not be able to handle it, the other sects might not be willing to help the Temple of Great Light. Looking at Chu Xiao, Su Yan said coldly, "Then how do you plan to deal with it? The group of people surrounding the Great Light Temple must not stay there forever." Chu Xiao had been waiting for Su Yan to say this. He extended 3 fingers and said, 3 months. I only need 3 months. This time is enough for me to account to Xiang Long. When the time comes, I will have them retreat. Of course, if the Temple of Great Light is not willing to wait for these 3 months, they can just kill them. If the Temple of Great Light can do something so ruthless, I will concede defeat and avoid the Temple of Great Light from now on. Su Yan snorted coldly, turned around, and left. If the Temple of Great Light dared to kill people, why would he rush to see Chu Xiao now? Behind Su Yan, a smile appeared on Chu Xiao's face. Su Yan did not agree, which meant that he had tacitly agreed. In these 3 months, the Temple of Great Light would not disturb him, which was enough for Chu Xiao to find the things that Lu Jianghe had buried. At the same time, he would be able to account to Xiang Long. At the side, Bai Wuji was a little doubtful. "Sir, are you sure the Temple of Great Light will not make a move? With the Temple of Great Light's personality, they will not tolerate sand in their eyes." Chu Xiao said calmly, "Can't tolerate sand? That depends on how big the sand is. Don't think that the Temple of Great Light is really untainted by the mud. In the martial world, everything depends on strength. The things that I have done are 100 or 1,000 times more evil than that Nan Qianli. Why don't I see anyone coming to me to kill demons and defend justice? Because my strength is stronger than that Nan Qianli's. Because my background is also stronger than Nan Qianli's. If the Temple of Great Light really cannot tolerate sand in their eyes, then there would have been no Temple of Great Light in the martial world 500 years ago. But you're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.